Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports. Joined by myself, Mark and Reece for the F1 podcast. Haven't done one of these in a little while, but we're going back to it. So we've got paddock rumours happening and all these various stories coming out, of course, after yesterday's Grand Prix in Mexico, which saw Max Verstappen took a record-breaking 16th win in a single season. So, Reece, of course, we're going to go and talk about a lot of things. And, of course, anybody can go and ask us some questions in the chat. We've got a poll going up as well with regards to one of the main stories which is coming out of these paddock rumours, which is that Alonso could potentially replace Sergio Perez in that Red Bull seat.
Yes, well, it is a bit of a far-fetched rumour, of course, but it gets the clicks, which is why that is set as our thumbnail and our title for today. But I think it could be possible in the future. I think Sergio Perez isn't performing up to the level that he needs to be in that Red Bull seat. We're seeing Fernando Alonso, well, we saw him in the beginning of the season doing relatively well in that Aston Martin car, but now throughout the rest of the season they have not upgraded it and evolved it as much as the other teams throughout the top five, and that's why they are falling back and out of that top five title battle. So I think that's relatively disappointing for Fernando Alonso, and I think he's going to be hoping to get a top team to drive with. And I don't think you can ever discount him. Of course, he is a little bit older in age, but still performing at the level, or at the same level as those youngsters that are also in Formula One. And I don't think it is too far-fetched to get him into that seat.
No, not at all in this case. Of course, as we said, it's a rumour. It's very much just pretty much probably somebody in the back there just going and saying, oh, you know what, let's have Alonso in that Red Bull car. But let's actually look at what that would mean and what that could potentially do in that Red Bull I suppose that Red Bull setup. So gpblog.com's got a little bit of an article here, and we're just going to read a little bit into it, and I suppose we'll chat about the various things that could happen with regards to it. So the rumor started on Monday after tweets from some prominent figures in F1. So it is no secret that there was tension in several different areas. The big question is which bomb will blow first. After the Mexico Grand Prix, here's the state of play on some lingering issues in the sport. The seat next to Max Verstappen, being Sergio Perez, has been under pressure at Red Bull Racing all year. We know this. First, Perez wants to compete for the world title, but now he's seemingly losing his seat with the team. In front of his home crowd, the Mexican would have scored the most important points for his season for the standings, but he threw it all away with his chances in the first corner. The Red Bulls supported him afterwards, but internally the situation will be discussed differently. This cannot go on like this. Not only is Perez simply too slow compared to Verstappen, but he is also too big a cost for the team at the moment. The 33-year-old driver has already caused a lot of damage with his crashes, which is far from ideal with the budget cap. Daniel Ricciardo did make his mark in the Mexico Grand Prix of all places by qualifying fourth ahead of Perez in the Red Bull 19. Ricciardo also drove a decent race, and although it must be said that Yuki Tsunoda came very close until his crash, Ricciardo finished off in 8th position. So he did exceptionally well, and Perez not finishing the race shows that Ricciardo really did put his name up there in terms of outperforming Perez within that Red Bull setup. Perez, though, not performing well enough for Red Bull racing standard, but is Ricciardo the best alternative? Well, Alex Albon shows weekly at Williams that he has also grown immensely, but Helmut Marko argues that they cannot now cut the tie loose. They cannot now cut the tie loose of Williams. His team talks have also been held with Lando Norris, but he would prefer a longer stay at McLaren over a place alongside Max Verstappen. Then perhaps Carlos Sainz, an old friend of Red Bull and the ideal second driver to Charles Leclerc. However, Sainz wants to win himself and knows from experience that he'll be in trouble alongside Verstappen, so the options are limited, which brings across the big rumour mill of Fernando Alonso.
Of course, there has been a little bit of rumours going about Fernando Alonso wanting to retire with the whole Aston Martin saga. A big question mark also appears behind Fernando Alonso's name. At 42 years old, Alonso is the oldest Formula One driver on the grid. And where he was still so positive at the beginning of the year, while the whole Aston Martin project was still somewhat competitive, it has now collapsed. And there are some rumours going around that Lawrence Stroll could soon pull the plug on his Formula One project. The Guinea Group is reportedly looking to take over, and given that his son Lance Stroll's motivation has dropped away from Formula One, Lawrence would do well to sell the lot. The team started the Formula One season so well, but has taken completely the wrong direction with the development of their car. This certainly will not please Stroll, with the RB18 that was copied well at the beginning of the season by Dan Fallows and his squad, but over the year it became clear that copying does still not allow you to understand those fundamental fundamentals of their design concept. The Stroll family has tried in Formula One, first at Williams, then at Aston Martin, with mega amounts of money being put into that team, but with no success for their son, Lance.
So, will Fernando Alonso rather retire, or will he move to yet another team in his Formula One career? With the Aston Martin saga, a big question mark also appears behind Fernando Alonso's name. At 42 years old, Alonso is the oldest F1 driver on the grid. So, will he move into that seat, you reckon, next season or not?
Well, I don't know about Red Bull. I think they are just... He's a little bit too old for them, unfortunately, in terms of signing him for a multi-year contract. Maybe they might just sign him for a year to allow maybe Daniel Ricciardo to get a little bit more comfortable in the AlphaTauri seat and then re-evaluate after that. I think if Aston Martin isn't going to be able to provide a good enough race car for Fernando Alonso, he is going to start looking elsewhere. I think his contract still goes into next year, but they could try and do a driver swap between himself and Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez used to be in that team when it was still Force India, then becoming Racing Point, and now Aston Martin. So I think he would be welcomed back at the team by all of the engineers and personnel, but I don't know if anyone would want him back at his current form. Unfortunately, just not being able to be competitive in what could be the most dominant Formula One car in history of the sport.
Yeah, so I mean, Fernando Alonso not really going to be moving to Red Bull. He's quite old, and it's unlikely that he will make a move to that Red Bull seat, but it is still part of the rumour mill. Stranger things have happened, and we could very well see Sergio Perez at least out of that Red Bull seat next year. And if Sergio Perez does happen to leave Red Bull in the next coming seasons, who would you like to see in his place? Would you like to see Fernando Alonso, even though he's 42 years old, started to get towards the end of his career, one imagines eventually? Would you like to see him in that Red Bull? Would you like to see Alex Albon come back to that Red Bull car? Would Norris suit it? Would another driver completely suit it? Maybe Daniel Ricciardo be upgraded, Perez be lumped into that AlphaTauri team? All these questions will be asked. So be sure to let us know in the comments. As Stefan is joining us here saying, how's it, guys? Great to have you here, Stefan. And yeah, I mean, I suppose that brings us then to the thing, talking of the weekend with regards to Perez's home Grand Prix. So we've got 5 winners, we've got 5 losers. Let's go through one of the winners.
Of course, Max Verstappen being the biggest winner from that Grand Prix race weekend, winning the race by a gap of over 15 seconds to Lewis Hamilton in second place. Just reading through here, Max Verstappen has taken up a near-permanent residency in the winners section of this feature this year. The Dutchman delivering yet again another commanding performance in Mexico City to secure a 16th win in his 2023 season, which is a new single-season record. This was Verstappen's 5th victory in Mexico, tying Austria's Red Bull Ring for the venue where he has enjoyed his most success, and moving him to 251 points clear of the top of the Drivers' Championship. He has already won the championship, but there's a bigger gap that separates all the other drivers in the drivers' standings. His 18th podium of the year in 19 events ties his own single-season record with 3 Grand Prix still to go. This year just gets better and better for the Red Bull racer.
Yeah, indeed. And his teammate, not so much. Of course, Sergio Perez did not. And he was a big loser. That's the very next person, of course, we have to talk about. And in the case of emotions was the other scale for Verstappen's teammate, as he was distraught with his performance after making contact with Charles Leclerc that caused race-ending damage. His second retirement in 4 races was a painful way to end his home Grand Prix race weekend at a venue where he enjoyed such unrelenting and passionate support from a wonderful crowd. And it means his lead over Lewis Hamilton in the fight for P2 in the Drivers' Championship was near cut in half with 20 points, the gap heading to Brazil. The pressure is on for Sergio Perez. And as James says in the comments, can definitely see Perez to AlphaTauri with Ricciardo to Red Bull. Alonso will stay, I think. Well, I think that's one of the big things that you could possibly see in that Red Bull setup. It's very easy, of course, for them to do so, just to move them within the team. It is all one big setup, AlphaTauri being their second team. So one imagines if they really aren't happy enough with Sergio Perez, they will put Daniel Ricciardo in that seat instead.
To be honest, I don't know why they'd want to move Sergio Perez into the AlphaTauri team. They're spending multi-millions on him per year to be able to compete in that AlphaTauri seat. He's not at the moment. Why would you give him a second chance in your sister team when you can just put in one of your younger drivers and just get him out and not have to pay him anymore?
So what you're saying is basically, don't put Perez in any team, have him maybe even as a reserve, put Liam Lawson straight into that AlphaTauri setup.
I think so. I don't see the point in putting him in that AlphaTauri seat. That seat is meant for young drivers to make their way into Formula One and then into that Red Bull seat. Why demote him into the AlphaTauri seat and pay him multi-millions as if he's still in that Red Bull seat? You're still going to pay him either way if he's not in the sport or if he's in the sport. So take him out completely. Maybe he can go to another team or he has to have a hiatus year. and then just put a younger driver in that AlphaTauri seat and possibly move Daniel Ricciardo up into Red Bull.
Well, what it does sound like is there needs to be an ultimatum with regards to Sergio Perez. Will they back him for next season? Will they not? They need to make this decision ASAP because we're only 3 races away from the end. You know, we've got Brazil, we've got Las Vegas, we've got Abu Dhabi, and that is the season over. And they really do need to make these decisions quickly because the seasons are so long. The start of the season early next year, they need to get cracking with regards to what's happening. They need to have an understanding. As Reece says, do you agree with him in the comments? Go and let us know. Should it be Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda in AlphaTauri, and Danny Rick and Verstappen in Red Bull? Should it be Liam Lawson and somebody else completely in that AlphaTauri setup? Or do you think Perez would be demoted to AlphaTauri? Reece doesn't think so. I certainly don't think so. It's not really a logical move at all. I'm struggling to see if Red Bull would make such an offer for somebody this late on, though, for next season. So I think that's the only thing that comes with this.
You say that, but Mick Schumacher was released from Haas at the end of the season last year.
Yeah.
So we've seen stuff left to later in the season. Just looking at a few winners, a few other winners from this weekend. Lewis Hamilton, of course, being the biggest winner, having come in P2 off the back of his US Grand Prix, where he was unfortunately disqualified from that race due to the wear on his floor. But this was one of Lewis Hamilton's strongest drives of the year, with the Briton fighting through from 6th on the grid to secure a brilliant second in the Mexico Grand Prix for the 3rd year in succession. He clocked the fastest lap on the final lap of the race. That is his 65th career fastest lap, moving him just 12 adrift of Michael Schumacher's all-time record. The bonus point that came with it also helped in his pursuit for second in the Drivers' Championship, a target that recently looked fanciful, but is very much on the cards now, given his performance curve.
Yeah, so I mean, do you think Lewis Hamilton could get further up in the Drivers' Championship?
100%. I think he's going to take it away from Sergio Perez.
You reckon he gets second?
I don't think that Sergio Perez is going to be able to hold out at the moment with his pure run of form right now. I think he's going to retire from possibly another race in the next 3.
You know what would have been interesting is the fact that if Hamilton didn't get disqualified in the previous race, and then of course we saw Sergio Perez not finish yesterday and Hamilton get a second, we probably would have seen Hamilton literally he would have taken already.
This weekend.
So it's an interesting one, the fact that Hamilton, even with that disadvantage last weekend, could still very easily take Sergio Perez right at the end here, which will be damning to Red Bull, of course, and their hopes for having a 1-2 and Constructors' Championship in the belt. So lots of eyes on Sergio Perez. But Hamilton, of course, certainly advancing in that Mercedes car, and the Mercedes team certainly advancing towards a much better season in 2024. A team, of course, that's still associated with Red Bull that saw a lose over the weekend was that of Yuki Tsunoda.
Yes, Yuki Tsunoda. I'm getting fed up with Yuki Tsunoda, to be very honest. I think Red Bull need to get rid of 2 drivers. They need to get rid of Sergio Perez and Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda has been in that AlphaTauri seat for 3 years now. He hasn't been promoted up into the Red Bull seat, hasn't shown any major signs of a breakthrough in terms of performance, and we're still seeing the fact that he is so immature in that car. I think the point that proved that for me this race weekend was the fact when he crashed with Oscar Piastri, he of course was spun around there into turn 1. Then instead of getting his car back out onto track, he was throwing a tantrum in that car, throwing his hands all over the place instead of getting back out onto circuit.
I mean, it was absolutely bizarre, as you say. I mean, even in his turn, he was throwing his hands up, and then the car stopped, started the car moving, and then was just throwing his hands up, hitting his steering wheel, and then getting going eventually. His engineer came back onto the radio to go and say, you can still make up lots of places in this race, keep going. He says, I do not want to be spoken to. I don't want to hear any more things for the rest of the race. So basically saying, I don't actually care about the rest of this race because I'm just going to be a fed-up little spoiled brat, essentially.
Well, I think it really shows the immaturity still of Yuki Tsunoda. He is still quite young, but we have seen better mindsets coming from other Red Bull juniors, from other juniors in the sport, full stop, really. I think there's a lot more people in the sport who deserve to get into that seat and could do a lot better with their performance compared to Yuki Tsunoda.
And of course, Yuki Tsunoda not performing well is going to seriously impact him these days because his packing with Honda is not going to be that strong as it was before. Honda and Red Bull were like this.
It's not going to be as strong as it was before. It's going to become non-existent, Mark.
Exactly.
Because they are moving away from Red Bull. Red Bull are moving towards their own powertrains that are built in-house with collaboration with Ford on their engine energy recovery unit part. But I do think that Sergio Perez and Yuki Tsunoda are going to be coming under a lot of pressure, specifically from Helmut Marko. We know he's very, very tough on their drivers, but I think when they are not performing up to their best, that is when they need to kind of have a look at themselves and see where they can improve. And I think Yuki Tsunoda has done that multiple times and just is not making any breakthroughs in his performance. Another winner from this race weekend, though, was Daniel Ricciardo, who went on to say it looked like who has been topped to say it looks like the Daniel Ricciardo of old is back from this race weekend. Said the Red Bull boss Christian Horner as he heralded a sensational performance from the Australian, competing in only his second race since recovering from a broken hand. Old man Rue there in the comment section saying, I agree, Yuki should go.
Well, it's the interesting thing, of course. Daniel Ricciardo did brilliantly to finish 8th after qualifying in 4th, and he should have actually got 7th. If he had another lap in him, he would have taken George Russell. Got very, very close to the back of him, handling his tyres a lot better in a much less powered car, of course, in that AlphaTauri seat, one of the worst cars on the grid.
Well, not anymore. They have brought major upgrades from the US Grand Prix onwards. Actually, no, I think it may have been even the Qatar Grand Prix that they did bring those Red Bull style upgrades. Of course, they're allowed to copy the concepts of other cars within reason. They are allowed to take a certain amount of parts from their Red Bull sister team as well. And they're doing that now as much as possible within the set regulations. And now we are seeing Daniel Ricciardo being able to find a lot more performance in that car and get his car a lot higher up the grid. Of course, his qualifying result was helped a lot by the fact that Yuki Tsunoda did give him the slipstream. But even without the slipstream of Yuki Tsunoda in Q3, he still placed his car up in P4.
Well, yeah, we talk about that, of course, but AlphaTauri still nowhere near Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari and the likes. They shouldn't be anywhere near them, yet still competing yesterday.
I was going to say, you say they're nowhere near the likes of them, but they're now able to compete with them in a race which is very power dependent at the circuit in Mexico. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen at a more traditional track like the one next weekend out at Interlagos in Brazil. That's a much more realistic indicator of their true performance with those new car upgrades. I think we're also going to be looking at a lot of other teams who have brought major upgrades. As we look at another winner, or another loser rather, from this weekend, which was Haas. This was a chastising weekend for Haas, who dropped to the bottom of the Constructors' Championship after a 4th Grand Prix without points. Nico Hülkenberg looked like he may snatch at least one with a gritty drive on his 200th Grand Prix weekend, but 70 laps in on the mediums proved a step too far as he faded down to 13th. His teammate Kevin Magnussen had a massive crash when his Haas suffered a left rear suspension failure through turn 8, which veered him into the barriers, causing a major amount of damage to his car, damage to the Tech Pro barriers, and a red flag in that race, which just caused a little bit more interesting dynamics throughout that race yesterday on Sunday.
Exactly. And we go then to one of our major winners yesterday, arguably the best drive I've seen from Lando Norris in a little while. Granted, a lot was helped, to get him up to the position, but starting all the way down in 17th position to fight his way to the top 5. I mean, unbelievable.
Yes, Lando Norris, of course, we expected him to be able to fight through the top 10 and get quite close up to the top. I was almost expecting him to get onto the podium because we know how fast these McLarens have been all season. With their new upgrades, of course, from I think it was about race 5 or 6 onwards that they did bring those newly upgraded cars, and they did find all of that pace. I think it was in Austria where they did bring that major upgrade. But we're expecting him to be at the top. Of course, he was hampered by the fact that he did not get a clean run in qualifying 1 on Saturday evening, so he was eliminated from that first qualifying session, and that really made his race a little bit more difficult. I think he would have been able to challenge for possibly top 2, maybe for the race win yesterday if he didn't have that bad qualifying session on Saturday evening.
Indeed. So he was very busy in Mexico yesterday, doing exceptionally well to get ahead of George Russell right near the end there and move himself into 5th. And that's the most positions he has ever gained in a race, and was the kind of performance that yielded the fan-voted Driver of the Day accolade for the 4th race in a row. And yet he seems to doubt himself often in his car, and Driver of the Day 4 times in a row. One imagines that he does need to just take a chill every now and then and realize he's quite the driver. Should he be moving on from McLaren, or do you think McLaren will give him a car next season that'll really get him motoring?
Well, I think now the basis car that they have, they can evolve and develop on that. They seem to have found a lot of pace. Next year, hopefully they keep on the fundamentals of this car and just elevate it a step or 2, hopefully a step or 3, because then they should be able to compete with the likes of Red Bull. But looking at another loser from this race weekend, Alfa Romeo was another big one, who looked menacing throughout practice, particularly through Valtteri Bottas, with the Swiss team getting both cars into quali 3. However, the race fortunes weren't as rosy. Bottas was unlucky to pit just a lap before the safety car, which meant he lost a significant amount of track position. The team then said that he got a tear-off suck in his left rear brake duct, which caused brake temperatures to spike throughout the race and limited his ability to recover from those lost positions from the safety car. Zhou too was hurt by the red flag having pitted earlier, but lacked the grip after the restart and was unable to attack, leaving him 14th at the flag.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, for all that we say they're losers, I think Alfa Romeo barely scored points this season. We talked about Alpha Tauri being one of the worst teams this season in general. Points-wise, I think Alfa Romeo are the worst team on the grid. Certainly one of the far down teams in the whole grid. So them having got into Q3 and starting in the top 10 by itself was automatically a win. The moment they started the race, they were never going to hold on to those positions. But, as I say, they could have tried to do more in the race yesterday, but not able to do so. And we move on to our final winner from yesterday, that of Ferrari. Ferrari caused an almighty shock on Saturday as they took their first front row since last year's Monaco Grand Prix, headed by Charles Leclerc. They were unable to hold on to it, of course, but they did still finish third and fourth.
Yes, after a relatively bad start for Charles Leclerc, the two Ferraris got away, but Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez had a much better getaway in their Red Bull cars. And Max Verstappen went on to split the two Ferraris down that main straight and take first place into corner 1, where Charles Leclerc was wedged in between the two Red Bulls. He had Sergio Perez on his outside, him in the middle, and Max Verstappen on his inside. He went to try and compete with Max Verstappen into turn 1, but he also, as I said, had that car of Sergio Perez on his left. Sergio Perez just, I think, misjudged the amount of space that he had to Charles Leclerc. Hit his front left tyre, sent himself flying up into the air, ended his race, of course, then yesterday. Charles Leclerc received a little bit of damage on his front wing, breaking the end plate off of that. He was at least able to keep up in terms of pace to Max Verstappen, dropping a few tenths every lap, but being able to compete at least. Then the safety car did come out, and then the red flag was called because of that crash from the Haas driver of Kevin Magnussen. They were able to then fix that front wing, but later in the race, he did lose that second place position to Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, but still a great race though for Ferrari. Finishing in third and fourth is not too bad, given the fact that their car also did not have that engine replacement for this race weekend. They were worried about how it was going to affect them. Didn't seem to affect them all that much. Still got a lot of points in the weekend, and they can be very chuffed with that result, of course. Which then moves on to our final losers from yesterday, and pretty much losers for the season with regards to how they started so well and have dropped off significantly. As one of the other articles said just before we got to this, you can copy one car, but if you don't keep developing and understanding why they do all of this, it's not going to make it to the end of the season, and we've seen that with Aston Martin.
Well, I think they put a lot of money into developing the car before the season started, and I think that's where they went wrong. They needed to leave a lot of space to develop that car throughout the season, and that's something that they haven't done as frequently as all of the other teams. We've seen a lot of other teams bringing upgrades almost every second or third race weekend, and it's been very far and few in between for Aston Martin. And that is where throughout the season that you are going to lose a lot of pace to your competitors. Every single season has this, and we've seen it throughout the past, where you have to keep developing your car as much as possible. Of course, now we do have budget caps in Formula 1, which means that you can only develop up to a certain point within regards to how much you're able to spend, but you need to be clever in where you bring your upgrades and how you bring them. You need to do a lot of analysis of what the other teams are upgrading on their cars and see in which areas you need to develop. And I think one of the biggest areas that pretty much every single other team needs to develop and be able to catch up to Red Bull is their suspension.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think Aston Martin need to put some more thought into how they go about their season with regards to development as well as starting the season off. But I think they'll learn from the season. Next season, surely one imagines they'll be a little bit better. But of course, that depends on whether Mr. Stroll decides to hold on to his team or whether he does decide to sell it. As some people seem to rumor, I doubt very much he'll let the
I would be
team
very
go.
surprised if he does go on to let the team go. I wouldn't be surprised if he says, Lance, okay, your time is done in the team. Let's get someone else in there. Possibly because I think also one of the major issues at that team is they've got one really good driver who's, of course, coming to the end of his career, and another driver who doesn't really care. He's not really helping as much to develop that car from a feedback point of view, because I don't think he has the vast amounts of knowledge that a likes of Fernando Alonso has.
Well, I don't expect him to have the same amount of knowledge as Fernando Alonso, but I expect him to put in a lot more effort than
But that's
he's
the
been
thing.
doing.
I don't think he has the drive that Fernando Alonso has to develop that car and get onto podiums. I'm sure, of course, he wants to get onto the podiums, but I don't see that drive and fire in Lance Stroll anymore.
No, not at all. And of course, Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso could not finish the race yesterday. Alonso had a small issue which they tried to fix during that red flag, but they were unable to do so and retired his car. And Lance Stroll retired after he also made a bit of contact near the end of the race. A rather poor attempt at an overtake, or rather a defensive. I think it was an overtake, rather. And both cars had to retire yesterday. But those were all of our winners and losers from the Grand Prix there. Old Man Rouge just saying a stellar drive by Lando, of course, marking his winning, his being a winner from yesterday's Grand Prix, and McLaren being so much better this year. Now, what do you think McLaren could do next year?
McLaren, I think they're going to... Well, we spoke about this a little bit already. I think they have a really good platform to start their development for next year. I'm sure they have already started developing that car. But I expect them to be able to have quite a lot of pace at the beginning of the season. Whether they're able to maintain that pace throughout the season, that is going to be the main question. It's really important, of course, as we've been speaking about, to maintain that amount of development and upgrades throughout the season, to keep consistent and keep putting the pressure on your other competitors in the sport. But I don't really know what we can expect from them. I'm hoping that they're going to be able to compete from the outset, but there's so many unknowns going into next season.
Exactly that. So, just wrapping up the show with one more topic, which we, of course, did get onto with regards to winners and losers from the weekend. That of Sergio Perez. But we do have one comment from Christian Horner, which we will just go and read about. But then we'll just have a small discussion about what Red Bull should do, where Perez could go if they decide to move him on, and basically what's going to happen for next season, I think, in general. So, Horner insisted that Perez's race-ending incident was not him to blame. So Sergio Perez's hopes of a third straight podium at his home race were dashed, of course, at the very first corner in the lap. So it's not been a season to remember for him, but Christian Horner went and said, on one side, elated to have won the race, keeping that winning momentum going, of course, with Max Verstappen, but on the other side, desperately disappointed with Checo, going for the lead of the race, a racing accident, down at turn 1. To go out on the first lap in front of your home crowd, really painful for him. He was really emotional, as you can imagine, but he is a racing driver. He had to go for it. You can't place the blame on any of the drivers. 3 into 1 is always going to be tough into one corner, and he had a rocket ship to start, probably his best start of the year, and he was going for it in front of his home crowd.
Yes, of course, I think you have to take into consideration it was Sergio Perez's home race. You're going to want to put on the best performance for your home crowd. You're going to want to try and get the race win. He saw the opportunity into turn 1. He went for it, and unfortunately it ended his race there. In turn 1, I think maybe, of course, in hindsight, you can say a million things, but possibly just thinking of it now, he should have tried to stay a little bit more alongside Charles Leclerc, not trying to overtake him, being a little bit more cautious. I think he should have realized that there was another car on his inside as well. That was why Charles Leclerc was so wide on the track. But all of this, as I say, is in hindsight. Christian Horner went on to say, of course it's tough for him, but he is our driver and we want him to achieve and what we know he is capable of. And we'll continue to support him and protect him. Once he was asked about all of the rumours swirling around the paddock regarding Sergio Perez's future at the team and in the sport. Of course, speaking about that, if he does get axed from Red Bull, could we see it happening next year, beginning of the season, before the season starts, or could we see that happening at the end of 2024 when his contract does come to an end?
See, the problem is this is why I say I don't think Perez will be changed for next season, simply because Christian Horner's got his own reputation on the line in terms of his statements he's made in the media, and he does hold those statements very true. He tries to hold on to what he says for as long as possible, and he's very good about that sort of thing, which is why I say they've been saying all year that they will protect Checo. They like Checo as a second driver. They want him there. And so I don't think they'll lose him for next season, but I think they'll judge him very harshly in all his races.
In that same breath, though, he has gone on to commend Daniel Ricciardo for a phenomenal weekend. He went on to say, "You couldn't fail to be impressed by Daniel this weekend. His qualifying was outstanding yesterday." Off of the back of that qualifying session, of course. He can take a lot of confidence coming back from the injury. He's had a tough time over the last couple of months sitting on the sidelines, but that's the Daniel Ricciardo that we are used to seeing. Confidence is such a thing in Formula 1. His confidence is coming up. Checo, though, on the other hand, we just need him to have that confidence-boosting result, and he could have had it today, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. I think, though, they are going to start getting really frustrated with Sergio Perez. He is in one of the most competitive cars on the grid, if not the most competitive car in Formula 1 history, and he's just not making the right calls in terms of where to place that car, what he does throughout the race weekend. I think possibly, of course, the car does develop in a way that may go on to suit your number one driver, but at the same time, you have to go, I am in this team. I can still push for the car to be developed and set up in a way that suits me.
Exactly that. So, I mean, I was very disappointed with Checo yesterday. I did think he was actually going to have a very good race if he just managed to get past that first lap, because he did easily have the best start of anybody.
100% had the best start of
and
anybody.
it was arguably one of the best starts I've seen all season. He took basically 4 positions by the first corner. It was insane to have seen a
5
start.
positions. He started in 5th.
That's what I say.
He got into P1.
Well, makes up 4 positions then to get into first. But yes, he started in 5th, which is brilliant. And he was ahead of everybody going into turn 1. He just turned way too early into Leclerc. So, unfortunate for him. I still think he does have the ability to really showcase his stuff. We saw it right at the beginning of the season. But his mentality, I think, was significantly hit when he suddenly realized he was fighting for a title. And I think he got scared by that the same way Leclerc might have got scared last season.
I kept seeing the momentum carrying from the beginning of the season, and where I really saw it drop off, as I'm sure everyone else saw it drop off, was in Monaco. It was his first crash of the season. He went into the wall in Monaco in turn 1, and ever since then, he has not been the same driver since.
No, not at all. So there's a big thing. That's why Christian Horner keeps going on about trying to get Checo's confidence back. They know it's been hit. They need to find a way to get it back. Problem is, they can't wait too long.
The problem is, as a team, you cannot yourself give that confidence back to your driver. He has to find that out on circuit. And one of the only ways for them to get that confidence back is to get back on the podium or a race win.
Exactly that. He needs to get on the podium. He's got 3 races to do it. We've got Brazil coming up this weekend. We've then got Las Vegas. Very, very, very
in 2 weeks'
very
time, I think it is.
Yes, 2 weeks' time. Of course, we will have a race this
break,
weekend, then
if
a
I'm
week
not
break.
mistaken.
Yeah, it's this weekend, then a week break, then Las Vegas, and then Abu Dhabi after that. And everybody's very keen to see what happens in Las Vegas. But we've got Brazil before that. What can Lewis Hamilton do there? Of course, Lewis Hamilton loves Brazil. But that's the one thing that we have to look forward to this weekend.
Yes, certainly looking forward to Interlagos, where Lewis Hamilton is pretty much considered a citizen of that country. I think they have given him an honorary citizenship of Brazil. So he's going to be very, very competitive there. He loves that circuit, as is Max Verstappen. I think he's also going to be one to watch there. But I think just off the back of this weekend, Sergio Perez really does need to find his form again. I think this would have given him a major knock in his confidence yet again, especially in front of his home fans. We're really rooting for Sergio. We don't want to see him fall out of that seat. As much as we're saying we'd like to see other people who are more competitive in that seat, I'd really love to see the Checo of old get his confidence back and be able to fight with Max Verstappen. I was really, really looking forward to it at the beginning of the season, to get a really competitive drive from those two, because we saw a couple. I think we got a race win in Saudi Arabia for Sergio Perez at the beginning of the season. I think he had got about 3 race wins, if I'm not mistaken, and it's just really disappointing that so far he hasn't been able to show that form of old, and we're really hoping that he does find it once again. But that has been it for us here on the Forever Formula 1 podcast, speaking about all the paddock rumors and speaking about of news off the back of that Mexico Grand Prix this race weekend.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave us some comments that you want us to answer in the next few videos. Reece will, of course, be giving you all of the various shows coming up this week leading into the Mexican Grand Prix. But for now, I've been Reece. Tell you, that's going to be an interesting one. I've been Mark. Reece has been alongside me. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next time.
Hello and welcome to Forever Sports. My name is Reece. I'll be talking to you a little bit today about one of our channel partners, BITDEFENDER. BITDEFENDER is a global leader in cyber security. BITDEFENDER is committed to defending people all around the globe against cyber attacks, as well as to transform people's digital experiences. In the next 6 months, Forever Sports will be covering major tournaments such as the Rugby Championship, the Premier League, the remainder of the Formula 1 season, as well as embarking on the biggest Rugby World Cup YouTube campaign ever. To ensure that these are all a success, it is imperative that the Forever Sports channels and platforms remain uncompromised. And with Bitdefender, we can be assured that our cybersecurity needs are being taken care of. To read more on Bitdefender, please be sure to check the links in the description of our video. Once again, thank you very much to our partner, Bitdefender, for joining the channel. I've been Reece here on Forever Sports. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the Brazilian Grand Prix preview. Formula 1 continues its American triple header with the Brazilian Grand Prix, the concluding event in this thrilling series. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has since earned its place as one of the sport's most iconic tracks. Since 1990, this famous circuit has hosted the Brazilian Grand Prix every year, missing only 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. After doubts over the future of this venue and a possible switch to a new venue in Rio de Janeiro, Interlagos' future was saved by a new deal, pinning the circuit down until 2025, with the event becoming known as the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, officially known as Autodromo José Carlos Pache, is an iconic Formula 1 circuit located in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Renowned for its thrilling and challenging layout, this 4.3-kilometer circuit, which consists of 15 corners, is nestled into a natural bowl-like landscape, offering a unique and picturesque setting for motorsport enthusiasts. Interlagos is famous for its counterclockwise layout, which is a rarity in Formula 1, as well as its undulating track profile, featuring elevation changes that will test the skills of the Formula 1 drivers. Since 2004, Interlagos has served as one of the latter races in the Formula 1 season, and has served up many classic title deciders. The 2023 edition of the Brazilian Grand Prix will see the sprint format return for the final sprint race of the Formula 1 season. Because of the sprint format, this will be the order of events for the weekend. On Friday, the 3rd of November, Practice 1 will be held at 11:30 track time, where qualifying will be held at 3 p.m. On Saturday, the sprint shootout will be held at 11 a.m, while the sprint will be held at 3:30 p.m. And on Sunday, the main event, the Grand Prix, will be held at 2 p.m. Let's take a look at the weather predicted for this Grand Prix race weekend. On Friday, clouds are said to be the backdrop of the day, with rain being predicted to fall over the circuit in the morning. The temperature, however, will stay consistently around 25 degrees throughout the day. On Saturday, the situation will be slightly different, with temperatures being slightly lower around 21 degrees Celsius, and slightly stronger winds will be present throughout the day as well. For the race on Sunday, the situation might be similar to the preceding days. Nevertheless, temperatures will start around 20 degrees, and the wind should be slightly calmer compared to Saturday. This weekend, Pirelli will bring the 3 compounds in the middle of their range, being the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, one step harder from last weekend's Mexico Grand Prix. Even though it is a relatively technical circuit, there aren't any big demands on the tyres in terms of traction and braking because of its flowing layout, as well as the lack of slow corners. Who could we see being competitive this weekend? Last year's event saw Russell maintain his lead from the first lap onto the 71st lap, securing Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. This season, however, should provide us with an interesting race. With the resurgence of Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren, we should have at least 4 teams fighting out for the top positions. Altitude, however, will continue to play a role in this race weekend, as Interlagos is the second highest Grand Prix on the Formula 1 calendar. This means that teams will have to balance aerodynamic efficiency with engine cooling this weekend to extract the most from their cars' packages, something that the Mercedes-powered cars were able to do well during last weekend's Mexican Grand Prix. It remains to be seen if Ferrari or any other teams will decide to take a penalty for a power unit change, as Interlagos is a track that allows for making comebacks from the rear. And the presence of the sprint race provides an opportunity to earn crucial points on Saturday. This weekend gives Lewis Hamilton the best odds of getting a race win since Jeddah in 2021, as a stat going around social media has been gaining traction. that since 2017, the driver that took pole in Hungary would go on to win the Brazilian race. So could we finally see the drought being ended by Lewis Hamilton this weekend? Let's have a look at the betting odds for this weekend's Grand Prix, brought to you by our channel partners, BOYLESPORTS. Be sure to check out our channel partners BOYLESPORTS if you want to put your bets on this weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen with 16 out of 19 wins this season is the favourite to clinch his 19th victory, and has odds of 1.28 for him to win the Grand Prix, while Hamilton, who hasn't won a race since Jeddah in 2021, has odds of 8.4 to take the race win. Meanwhile, Perez, who will be wanting to make a comeback this weekend after his poor Mexican Grand Prix, has odds of 17.0 to take the victory in Brazil. Be sure to get your bets in on BOYLESPORTS by the 3rd of November at 4:30 when betting closes. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments who you are rooting for the Brazilian Grand Prix. I've been Reece on Forever Motorsports. Cheers.
Hello everybody, Stevie P here from Forever Sports, and I'm here to tell you about BOYLESPORTS, the official betting partner of Forever Sports. Across all of our channels, they are one of the leading betting companies in the world and have recently launched in South Africa with an amazing offering. You can get a 1,000 Rand welcome offer. For the rugby, they are giving you 25% payout boost up to 2,000 Rand on the Springboks winning the World Cup, as well as an extra 50 Rand bet when you stake 250 more on rugby during the Rugby World Cup. It is your one-stop betting shop. That is BOYLESPORTS. Come and join us in the community. Check the links in the description to sign up. Get yourself an account and make sure that you are winning big with BOYLESPORTS.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports for another daily live news video and quite a lot to talk about. Last night we heard the fact that the Chief Technical Officer of Mercedes and the Silver Arrows, Mike Elliott, has resigned from the team. Mercedes have parted ways with their Chief Technical Officer, Mike Elliott, after 11 years together. Elliott moved into the role 6 months ago, swapping positions with now Technical Director James Allison. His remit was to develop a technical strategy to renew the team's capability for the years ahead, after a difficult period where they have been comprehensively beaten by Red Bull. Mercedes say now that plan is in the process of delivery, and Elliott has declared to take a break from the sport in the coming months before deciding upon his next challenge. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff went on to say that Mike has become one of the pillars of the team's achievements over the past decade, and it is with mixed feelings that we say goodbye to him today. Mike is a fiercely intelligent technical brain and a great team player. He has made a strong contribution not just to winning race cars, but also to building the culture of our team. But on the other side, it is clear that he's ready for new adventures beyond Mercedes, so I know this is the right step for him to take too. He leaves the team today with our thanks for the effort, commitment and expertise he has brought to the team over the past 11 years, and our very best wishes for the future. Elliott went on to add that it has been one of the great privileges of his career to be part of this Mercedes winning team. During my time, I have seen it grow from a group of people pulling together to win races, then a first championship, to winning a record 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships. And I am proud to have made my contribution to that journey. Although the last 2 seasons have not seen us winning races in the manner we aspire to, they have tested us in many other ways and forced us to question our fundamental assumptions about how we deliver performance. During the past 6 months, I have enjoyed developing the technical strategy that we can provide the foundations of the team's next cycle of success. I've decided that now is the right time to make my next step beyond Mercedes. First to pause and take stock after 23 years of working flat out in the sport, and then to find my next challenge. I would like to thank my teammates for a fantastic 12 seasons together and wish them every success for the years to come. It ends a 23-year tenure in Formula 1 for Elliott that began as an aerodynamicist in 2000 and then saw him fill a series of frontline roles. He progressed through the team as head of aerodynamics, then technology director and technical director before taking the CTO role in April. It remains unclear if Elliott will be replaced in the role, and Mercedes are currently second in the championship, 22 points clear of Ferrari with 3 Grand Prix to go. The team are already heavily focused on the 2024 car, with trackside chief Andrew Chauvelin having already said that next year's machine will feature quite considerable changes as they look to return to their winning ways. Mercedes went and released a press release on their own website saying after 11 years, Chief Technical Officer Mike Elliott bade a fond farewell to colleagues in Brackley, as he has chosen to as he has chosen to depart with the team and begin the next chapter of his career beyond Mercedes. Since joining McLaren as an aerodynamicist in 2000, Mike has worked continuously in frontline roles in the sport for 23 seasons. As first head of aerodynamics, then technology director, and latterly as technical director. Mike has made a substantial contribution to the team's race and championship winning success from 2000 to 2023. Mike has been one of the pillars of the team's achievements over the past decade, explained Total. And it is with truly mixed feelings that we say goodbye to him today. Mike is a fiercely intelligent, technical brain and a great team player. He has made a strong contribution to not just race-winning cars, but also to building the culture of our team. But on the other side, it is clear he's ready for new adventures beyond Mercedes. So I know this is the right step for him to take too. He leaves the team today with our thanks for the effort, commitment and expertise that he has brought to the team over the past 11 years. Earlier this year, Mike moved into the role of Chief Technical Officer to Brackley, focusing on developing a technical strategy to renew the team's technical capability for the years ahead. Of course, we went on to read the majority of all of that, but really interesting to see that Chief Technical Officer, Mike Elliott, has now resigned from Mercedes and is focusing on his future ambitions and just taking a period of gardening leave before he does decide to move on further from that. So it will be very interesting to see if this will affect Mercedes' pace coming in the future, but I think they do have quite a strong team based back in Brackley, and they should have still a lot of members in their team with the expertise to be able to take over from the role of Mike Elliott. Whether we will see that CTO seat being refilled, we'll have to wait and see, but at the moment it is a little bit sad to see that person of Mike Elliott moving away from the sport, for now at least, but we will have to wait and see whether he does move on to another team in the Formula 1 grid or if he will move on to other motorsports or any other ventures from then onwards. But very interesting to have heard that. Moving on to the next article here, Max Verstappen will be hit with an eye-watering fee after his 2023 success. Max Verstappen's unparalleled success in 2023's Formula 1 season will lead to a record-breaking super license fee for his 2024 season. Max Verstappen is about to face a substantial financial consequence for his overwhelming success on the track in 2023. The Dutch driver, fresh off his 16th win in Formula 1, the Dutch driver, fresh off his 16th win of the season, is set to shell out a staggering €1 million fee to secure his super license for the 2024 season. Every Formula 1 driver is mandated to pay a set fee for their super license. In addition to a per-point charge base, every Formula 1 driver is mandated to pay a set fee for their super license annually. In addition to a per-point charge based on their performance in the previous season. For a driver like Verstappen, who has demonstrated unrivaled dominance on the track, this system translates to an eye-watering fee. As of the end of the Mexican Grand Prix in 2023, with 491 points under his belt, Verstappen will be required to pay over €1 million for his super license renewal in 2024. The super license fee for the upcoming season stands at €10,400 approximately, accompanied by an additional €2,100 for every point won in the previous season. This calculation brings Verstappen's total to a colossal €1,041,500, with the potential to climb even higher, possibly reaching €1.22 million, depending on his performance in the remaining 3 races of the season. This is really quite colossal for Max Verstappen, and an eye-watering figure, of course, if he does have to pay that for next season. Well, he will have to pay that, depending on how many more points he can get throughout the rest of the season. Verstappen is now chasing down an even higher race-winning victory number in terms of all of those victories throughout the season. He's already beaten the previous record in that number, but he could even go on, I think, in his next race to equal Sebastian Vettel for his number of race wins throughout his driving career. Certainly quite phenomenal for Max Verstappen, but it does show sometimes there is a bit of a downside to having all of those race wins, because he now does have to pay a massive fee for his super license next year. But I'm sure that is just pocket change for Verstappen. Moving on to our next article here, Alonso has provided a decisive verdict on his Formula 1 retirement. Fernando Alonso has said that he doesn't have a date for when he might end his Formula 1 career, despite currently only being contracted until the end of 2024. The 42-year-old has raced in the sport since 2001, and barring a 2-year retirement announced in 2018, he has enjoyed over 20 years of racing at the highest level. He has won two World Championship titles in 2005 and 2006, and is currently sitting on 32 career race wins. Alonso's move has been a real career rejuvenator. The Spaniard is currently enjoying his best season since 2013, having scored 7 podiums to date. Now the Spaniard has revealed that this particular contract, which runs through to the end of 2024, may not be his final contract in Formula 1, despite being well into his 40s by then. I like being competitive, he said. I like being fast, and I hate to lose. So you see, it's not very hard to motivate me once I'm inside the car, he laughed. Maybe, I'm a bit weaker than I was when I was 20 years old, but when you age, when you age, you know your body way better. You know which training to do when you feel tired and what things to avoid, and that is how you make up for it. You make up for strength with wisdom. For now, I'm not thinking of retirement. I know I'm closing on my career, but for now, I don't see it. I don't have to put a date on to the end of my career. Certainly very good to hear that Fernando Alonso isn't putting a date to the end of his career just yet. We'd love to see him in Formula 1 for quite some time longer. Of course, he is getting a little bit older in years, but certainly not showing it out on track at the moment. Bit disappointing that his car that he has at the moment isn't necessarily as competitive as he would like. He did show in the beginning of the season that he was still extremely competitive, but unfortunately, due to the fact that the car hasn't been developed as fast as some of those other teams, it means that they have fallen down a little bit in the order in the latter part of this season. We're hoping that they're going to be able to pick up their pace next season to give Fernando Alonso a bit more of a competitive car, but at least for now, we're happy that Fernando Alonso isn't putting an end date to his Formula 1 career just yet. Of course, there are a lot of rumours going around at the moment about his retirement, and glad to see that he isn't putting an end date to that, as well as there's a few rumours going around that he may go on to move to Red Bull if Sergio Perez does go away from that team. But Mark and I did go on to say that that was a bit of a far-fetched rumour out there, as I see Mark is joining me there in the comment section. Do be sure to join Mark there in the comment section and drop a comment down there and let me know where you're watching from, and let me know who you are supporting for this upcoming Brazilian Grand Prix race weekend, which is set to be quite exciting. Looking though off the back of the Mexican Grand Prix, Daniel Ricciardo's success in that race could award a £50 million achievement for the AlphaTauri team. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner was impressed by Daniel Ricciardo's performance across the Mexican Grand Prix weekend, as the AlphaTauri driver seemed back to his old self. The Australian delivered a crucial 7th place finish in Mexico City, hoisting Red Bull's sister team from the bottom of the Constructors' Championship up into 8th place. If AlphaTauri can maintain their position, Ricciardo's points haul will earn the Italian team a whopping 2.8% increase in Formula 1 prize money, which roughly equates to £15 million, compared to if they finished plumb last. After missing 4 rounds due to a broken hand suffered in a crash at Zandvoort, Ricciardo returned to action for the United States Grand Prix in Austin. 1 week later in Mexico City, the Australian driver secured AlphaTauri's best result of the season so far. In qualifying, Ricciardo showed consistent pace around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez with his AT04, in and around the top 5 quickest throughout the session. In crunch time during Q3, Ricciardo put everything together and managed to finish 4th, out-qualifying the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, as well as both Mercedes in the process. After a strong race start, the 34-year-old found himself fending off a lightning-quick Mercedes being piloted by Lewis Hamilton before battling it out with George Russell on the final lap. Speaking after the race, Horner spoke to Sky Sports about his shock result from their sister team. "You couldn't fail to be impressed by Ricciardo this weekend," said Horner. "His qualifying was outstanding yesterday, and then he showed his maturity and experience and pace in the race. I think that fighting Mercedes in an AlphaTauri for the best result of the year, it was a great performance." This performance has come at a crucial time in the discussion about the immediate future of Red Bull's Formula 1 seats, with Perez missing out hugely after crashing out on the opening lap of the race in front of his home fans. Ricciardo, though, took this opportunity to impress the Red Bull employers in a return to his form. Just 3 races remain for Red Bull to evaluate their drivers, but it seems that Horner may be persuaded by Ricciardo's resilience. With just 3 races remaining on the 2023 calendar, time is ticking for Horner to decide if he wants to keep Perez on for another season or promote Ricciardo to become Max Verstappen's teammate. On regards with Checo, we just need to have him return his confidence. And he could have it today, but it wasn't to be, Horner continued. But great to see Daniel looking like his old self. Had it not been for the red flag, he might have finished further up. He can take a lot of confidence coming back from his injury. He has had a rough time over the last couple of months, having to sit on the sidelines. But that is a Daniel that we're used to seeing. Ricciardo will be looking to impress his former team as Formula 1 heads to South America for the Brazilian Grand Prix. We're certainly looking forward to this Brazilian Grand Prix, and we're going to be waiting to see what Daniel Ricciardo can do in this race weekend after his return to form in the Mexican Grand Prix. Just looking now onto this Brazilian Grand Prix and looking at the race preview and predictions as well as betting odds and the schedule. Formula 1 heads to the Interlagos Circuit for the 2023 Brazilian Grand Prix, while Formula 1 continues its American tripleheader with the Brazilian Grand Prix, the concluding event in its thrilling series. The 2023 edition of the Brazilian Grand Prix marks the return of Formula 1 to the Autodromo José Carlos Pache circuit. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has since earned its place as one of the sport's most iconic tracks. In the 2023 edition of the race, Formula 1 witnessed Mercedes' dominance, with George Russell piloting the W13 car to victory in both the sprint race and the main Grand Prix race. Russell maintained his lead from the first lap to the 71st, securing Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. This triumph was instrumental in securing 3rd place for the Brackley team in the Constructors' title standings, behind Ferrari and Red Bull Racing. However, the landscape has shifted significantly as the 2023 season unfolds, with Red Bull and Max Verstappen asserting their dominance and wrapping up all titles in emphatic style. Nevertheless, there is still much at stake for the rest of the field, particularly Sergio Perez, whose home race at the Mexican Grand Prix ended abruptly after a collision with Charles Leclerc. Providing you with insight into the upcoming Grand Prix, we will look at the schedule as well as some of the sporting predictions. The 2023 Brazilian Grand Prix is set to span from November 3rd to November 5th, with various sessions and events scheduled over 3 days. On Friday, we have practice 1 at 11:30 track time, qualifying at 3 p.m. track time. And then, of course, on Saturday, we will have that sprint shootout at 11 a.m. track time and the sprint race at 3:30 track time. Then the main event on Sunday, November 5th, will be the Grand Prix at 2 p.m. track time. The Brazilian Grand Prix being the 20th race in the 2023 calendar, the Interlagos track is renowned for hosting thrilling and unforgettable races, making it one of the most demanding and exhilarating circuits on the Formula 1 calendar. This weekend's event will also feature the final sprint race weekend of the 2023 Formula 1 calendar. Red Bull has secured victory in 4 of the five sprint races held so far, making them a strong contender for another sprint race win. The Milton Keynes team will also hope they can return to their winning ways as they remain without a win at the circuit since 2019. Also, the weekend will provide Lewis Hamilton, who hasn't won a race since Jeddah 2021, with an opportunity to put an end to his winless run, as he hopes to ride the wave of Mercedes' recent success at the Brazilian Grand Prix. An interesting statistic that I've also seen is that the last race winner in every season has gone on to win the race winner of the the pole sitter of the Hungarian Grand Prix has gone on to win the Brazilian Grand Prix every year. So last year, George Russell went on to get pole at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and then he went on to win the Brazilian Grand Prix. This year, Lewis Hamilton went on to take pole at the Hungarian Grand Prix. So could we see him win the Brazilian Grand Prix? Looking at the Grand Prix predictions for this race weekend, Max Verstappen, with 16 wins out of 19 races this season, is the favourite to clinch his 17th victory. For your betting odds, our bookmakers have odds of 1.28 for the Dutch driver to win, with the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton having outsider odds of 10.0 for his first win since 2021. A redemption victory for Sergio Perez is offered at 15.0. The Brazilian Grand Prix features the 6th and final sprint race of the 2023 season. Verstappen, with a strong season performance so far, is favoured to win the Brazilian Grand Prix sprint, with bookmakers offering odds at 1.44. A sprint race win for Sergio Perez, on the other hand, carries odds of 21.0 and would significantly boost his confidence. Looking over a little bit at the characteristics of this circuit, Formula 1 heads into Interlagos next weekend, which is the shortest lap of the year after Monaco and Mexico. It is a historic track which runs anti-clockwise, also alternating in some quick actions as well as medium speed sequences of corners, such as the famous Senna S's. There aren't any big demands on the tyres in terms of traction and braking, as it is a very flowing layout. With a lack of slow corners, which means that the teams are able to control the degradation of the rear tyres, Brazil will host as well as the lack of slow corners means that the teams are able to control the degradation of the rear tyres. Brazil will host the sprint also this year, the last of the season, and it will be particularly interesting with the car package to see what will happen on the track, and once again the key role of differing strategies that can be used. In 2021, the Saturday was equally split between the drivers, starting on mediums and softs. Despite the short length of the sprint race, there's normally plenty of overtaking. Just think of Lewis Hamilton, who was the protagonist of a comeback that brought him to victory from 10th place, using a two-stop strategy. So the new generation of cars and tyres seem to provide us with another thrilling race this year. Looking at the tyres that Pirelli are bringing this race weekend, they're bringing the C2, the C3 and the C4, so a step down from last race weekend in Mexico. Also looking at the weather predictions for this race weekend, it is set to be pretty much clear throughout the remainder of this race weekend, with some rain predicted for Friday, but Saturday is set to be 24 degrees with a low of 14. Sunday is a little bit cooler with 21 and a low of 14 as well. Friday is supposed to be relatively hot with a 30-degree temperature being predicted and a low of 20 degrees, but of course there is a bit of rain predicted as well for Friday. So that could provide some interesting characteristics and interesting track opportunities around there on Friday afternoon, but I think that could throw a little bit of a spanner into the works for the qualifying session, of course, on Friday evening. Just looking there into the comment section, Phyllis Rahim just saying, rumors said that Helmut Marko is to get fired, but the truth is Mark Elliott with a twist of fate. Yes, certainly a bit of a twist of fate there, not seeing Helmut Marko getting removed from that position in Red Bull, but Mike Elliott has decided to resign from Mercedes. But that is it from me here today. A little bit of a shorter one. Unfortunately, not too much news coming out at the moment in Formula 1, but certainly looking really excited ahead of this Grand Prix race weekend in Brazil. Lewis Hamilton is a bit of a home race for him, as he is a honorary Brazilian citizen. He was given that last year ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. But certainly looking forward to this race weekend. I think it is going to be quite competitive, and we're going to see a lot of teams fighting it out for that top spot. I think a lot of teams should be relatively competitive around the circuit. We've got, of course, the Mercedes resurgence in the season. They've been quite quick, of course, in their race pace, as well as Ferrari seem to have found quite a bit more pace in the last couple of races, with, of course, the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc being able to take pole position last race weekend out in Mexico. But we'll have to wait and see what does happen this race weekend. I've been Reece here on Forever Motorsports. Thank you very much for joining me. Cheers. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the Brazilian Grand Prix preview. Formula 1 continues its American triple header with the Brazilian Grand Prix, the concluding event in this thrilling series. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has since earned its place as one of the sport's most iconic tracks. Since 1990, this famous circuit has hosted the Brazilian Grand Prix every year, missing only 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. After doubt over the future of this venue and a possible switch to a new venue in Rio de Janeiro, Interlagos' future was saved by a new deal, pinning the circuit down until 2025, with the event becoming known as the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, officially known as Autodromo José Carlos Pache, is an iconic Formula 1 circuit located in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Renowned for its thrilling and challenging layout, this 4.3-kilometer circuit, which consists of 15 corners, is nestled into a natural bowl-like landscape, offering a unique and picturesque setting for motorsport enthusiasts. Interlagos is famous for its counterclockwise layout, which is a rarity in Formula 1, as well as its undulating track profile, featuring elevation changes that will test the skills of the Formula 1 drivers. Since 2004, Interlagos has served as one of the latter races in the Formula 1 season, and has served up many classic title deciders. The 2023 edition of the Brazilian Grand Prix will see the sprint format return for the final sprint race of the Formula 1 season. Because of the sprint format, this will be the order of events for the weekend. On Friday, the 3rd of November, Practice 1 will be held at 11:30 track time, where qualifying will be held at 3 p.m. On Saturday, the sprint shootout will be held at 11 a.m, while the sprint will be held at 3:30 p.m. And on Sunday, the main event, the Grand Prix, will be held at 2 p.m. Let's take a look at the weather predicted for this Grand Prix race weekend. On Friday, clouds are said to be the backdrop of the day, with rain being predicted to fall over the circuit in the morning. The temperature, however, will stay consistently around 25 degrees throughout the day. On Saturday, the situation will be slightly different, with temperatures being slightly lower around 21 degrees Celsius, and slightly stronger winds will be present throughout the day as well. For the race on Sunday, the situation might be similar to the preceding days. Nevertheless, temperatures will start around 20 degrees, and the wind should be slightly calmer compared to Saturday. This weekend, Pirelli will bring the 3 compounds in the middle of their range, being the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, one step harder from last weekend's Mexico Grand Prix. Even though it is a relatively technical circuit, there aren't any big demands on the tyres in terms of traction and braking because of its flowing layout, as well as the lack of slow corners. Who could we see being competitive this weekend? Last year's event saw Russell maintain his lead from the first lap onto the 71st lap, securing Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. This season, however, should provide us with an interesting race. With the resurgence of Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren, we should have at least 4 teams fighting out for the top positions. Altitude, however, will continue to play a role in this race weekend, as Interlagos is the second highest Grand Prix on the Formula 1 calendar. This means that teams will have to balance aerodynamic efficiency with engine cooling this weekend to extract the most from their cars' packages, something that the Mercedes-powered cars were able to do well during last weekend's Mexican Grand Prix. It remains to be seen if Ferrari or any other teams will decide to take a penalty for a power unit change, as Interlagos is a track that allows for making comebacks from the rear. And the presence of the sprint race provides an opportunity to earn crucial points on Saturday. This weekend gives Lewis Hamilton the best odds of getting a race win since Jeddah in 2021, as a stat going around social media has been gaining traction that since 2017, the driver that took pole in Hungary would go on to win the Brazilian race. So could we finally see the drought being ended by Lewis Hamilton this weekend? Let's have a look at the betting odds for this weekend's Grand Prix, brought to you by our channel partners, BOYLESPORTS. Be sure to check out our channel partners BOYLESPORTS if you want to put your bets on this weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, with 16 out of 19 wins this season, is the favourite to clinch his 19th victory, and has odds of 1.28 for him to win the Grand Prix, while Hamilton, who hasn't won a race since Jeddah in 2021, has odds of 8.4 to take the race win. Meanwhile, Perez, who will be wanting to make a comeback this weekend after his poor Mexican Grand Prix, has the odds of 17.0 to take the victory in Brazil. Be sure to get your bets in on BOYLESPORTS by the 3rd of November at 4:30 when betting closes. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments who you are rooting for the Brazilian Grand Prix. I've been Reece on Forever Motorsports. Cheers. Welcome to Interlagos, home of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Formula 1 concludes its American triple header at the Autodromo José Carlos Pache. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has hosted an F1 race every year since 1990. After doubts over this track's future, it has now penned a contract to stay on the calendar until 2025. This circuit is a 4.3 kilometer long track made up of 15 corners and 2 DRS zones, which will see drivers lap the track 71 times on Sunday, as well as going racing on Saturday for the final sprint race of the 2023 season. The current lap record around the circuit is a 1 minute 10 seconds, set by Valtteri Bottas in 2018. Interlagos is a favourite for many Formula 1 drivers due to its technical layout, which sends drivers up and down over its undulating elevations throughout the lap, as well as due to the passionate fans that line the circuit grandstands, many of who will be cheering on Lewis Hamilton this weekend, who sees it as a home Grand Prix after he was given an honorary Brazilian citizenship before last year's race weekend. Qualifying around the circuit is crucial, as the pole sitter has gone on to win 16 times. This will put a lot of importance on getting your setup right in the single practice session on Friday. This weekend, Pirelli will bring the 3 compounds in the middle of their range, being the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, one step harder from last weekend's Mexico Grand Prix. Based off of last year's race at this venue, a 2-stop strategy should be the best option for teams. With Pirelli bringing tyres in the middle of the range, this should mean that all 3 tyres are a good option for the race on Sunday and should provide us with some excitement with differing strategies between teams. The probability of a safety car around the circuit is 66%, which could throw a spanner in the works for team strategies on Sunday. Watch now as you get taken around a lap of the Interlagos circuit. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as well as give us your predictions for the weekend in the comment section. We hope to see you during our coverage of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the Brazilian Grand Prix preview. Formula 1 continues its American triple header with the Brazilian Grand Prix, the concluding event in this thrilling series. This iconic circuit, often referred to as Interlagos, made its Formula 1 debut in 1973 and has since earned its place as one of the sport's most iconic tracks. Since 1990, this famous circuit has hosted the Brazilian Grand Prix every year, missing only 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. After doubt over the future of this venue and a possible switch to a new venue in Rio de Janeiro, Interlagos' future was saved by a new deal, pinning the circuit down until 2025, with the event becoming known as the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, officially known as Autodromo José Carlos Pache, is an iconic Formula 1 circuit located in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Renowned for its thrilling and challenging layout, this 4.3-kilometer circuit, which consists of 15 corners, is nestled into a natural bowl-like landscape, offering a unique and picturesque setting for motorsport enthusiasts. Interlagos is famous for its counterclockwise layout, which is a rarity in Formula 1, as well as its undulating track profile, featuring elevation changes that will test the skills of the Formula 1 drivers. Since 2004, Interlagos has served as one of the latter races in the Formula 1 season, and has served up many classic title deciders. The 2023 edition of the Brazilian Grand Prix will see the sprint format return for the final sprint race of the Formula 1 season. Because of the sprint format, this will be the order of events for the weekend. On Friday, the 3rd of November, Practice 1 will be held at 11:30 track time, where qualifying will be held at 3 p.m. On Saturday, the sprint shootout will be held at 11 a.m, while the sprint will be held at 3:30 p.m. And on Sunday, the main event, the Grand Prix, will be held at 2 p.m. Let's take a look at the weather predicted for this Grand Prix race weekend. On Friday, clouds are said to be the backdrop of the day, with rain being predicted to fall over the circuit in the morning. The temperature, however, will stay consistently around 25 degrees throughout the day. On Saturday, the situation will be slightly different, with temperatures being slightly lower around 21 degrees Celsius, and slightly stronger winds will be present throughout the day as well. For the race on Sunday, the situation might be similar to the preceding days. Nevertheless, temperatures will start around 20 degrees, and the wind should be slightly calmer compared to Saturday. This weekend, Pirelli will bring the 3 compounds in the middle of their range, being the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, one step harder from last weekend's Mexico Grand Prix. Even though it is a relatively technical circuit, there aren't any big demands on the tyres in terms of traction and braking because of its flowing layout, as well as the lack of slow corners. Who could we see being competitive this weekend? Last year's event saw Russell maintain his lead from the first lap onto the 71st lap, securing Mercedes' sole victory of the 2022 season. This season, however, should provide us with an interesting race. With the resurgence of Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren, we should have at least 4 teams fighting out for the top positions. Altitude, however, will continue to play a role in this race weekend, as Interlagos is the second highest Grand Prix on the Formula 1 calendar. This means that teams will have to balance aerodynamic efficiency with engine cooling this weekend to extract the most from their cars' packages, something that the Mercedes-powered cars were able to do well during last weekend's Mexican Grand Prix. It remains to be seen if Ferrari or any other teams will decide to take a penalty for a power unit change, as Interlagos is a track that allows for making comebacks from the rear. And the presence of the sprint race provides an opportunity to earn crucial points on Saturday. This weekend gives Lewis Hamilton the best odds of getting a race win since Jeddah in 2021, as a stat going around social media has been gaining traction that since 2017, the driver that took pole in Hungary would go on to win the Brazilian race. So could we finally see the drought being ended by Lewis Hamilton this weekend? Let's have a look at the betting odds for this weekend's Grand Prix, brought to you by our channel partners, BOYLESPORTS. Be sure to check out our channel partners, BOYLESPORTS, if you want to put your bets on this weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, with 16 out of 19 wins this season, is the favourite to clinch his 19th victory, and has odds of 1.28 for him to win the Grand Prix, while Hamilton, who hasn't won a race since Jeddah in 2021, has odds of 8.4 to take the race win. Meanwhile, Perez, who will be wanting to make a comeback this weekend after his poor Mexican Grand Prix, has odds of 17.0 to take the victory in Brazil. Be sure to get your bets in on BOYLESPORTS by the 3rd of November at 4:30 when betting closes. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments who you are rooting for the Brazilian Grand Prix. I've been Reece on Forever Motorsports. Cheers.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports here. You're joined by myself, Mark and Reece, and we are on the Forever Sports channel today for the practice one of Brazil this weekend, and how we are very interested to see what will happen. It's very, very windy. It's very, very humid. There's a high chance of rain during qualifying later. That's the big news that you're hearing. As well as the Sao Paulo Grand Prix has extended its contract by a further 5 years, which means that we will have this Grand Prix every year until 2030 at the least.
I'm very glad to hear that. I certainly love coming to this circuit. One of my favorite circuits on the calendar. It's quite fast. It's difficult for the drivers. It really requires you to be able to get into a rhythm around this circuit, and this weekend is going to be a little bit more difficult for drivers, as it is once again a sprint race weekend, which means we have practice one today, the only practice of the weekend. Then we have qualifying this evening, sprint shootout tomorrow morning, and then the sprint race tomorrow afternoon.
Well, tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening.
Track time,
but yeah,
of
track
course.
times, of course. Yes, so it's quite early in the day for Brazil. For the rest of us around most of the world, will pretty much be during our evening times here. So yeah, it's very, very windy at the moment, they said, and it's because they reckon there will be a bit of a storm later, or at least a lot of rain later on. So a lot of people are undercover at the moment because it is very windy outside. And that's certainly going to affect the cars. That's certainly going to throw drivers around. It's going to make it a difficult circuit in any case. So I think it's going to be a very challenging day, and lots going to go into the practice, of course. As Reece says, only one practice session, as it's a sprint weekend, which means that all of the setup has to be determined by the end of this practice session.
Yes, you can only get your setup correct during the session, so it does play a lot of importance. And if there is that chance of rain a little bit later, what do you do in terms of your setup? Do you compromise it to have a little bit more downforce for the rain, or do you set it up for the rest of the weekend when it's going to be dry?
You can just see how windy it is there in the crowd. How everyone's hair is just being flung about as we see a resident lizard staring very, very firmly at the camera and having a good chat about it. So it's very interesting to see there. But yes, our track guide will come up, of course, as the race, well, at least as practice gets going, and we'll get going with that.
The
timing board, same. But yes, that will come up, of course, as the session begins. So what do you think is going to happen in today's race? I mean, who are you supporting is obviously one of our polls up that you can go and check that out. Go and be sure to go and participate. And that's for the weekend, of course, for the poll there. But
yeah.
Who do you think will come out top in this practice session? I know it's very, very early to tell. But
well, I think a team that I'm going to be looking at this weekend is certainly those Mercedes that have been finding a lot more pace in the last few race weekends. I think they could have a little bit more pace around here. Their car should suit this type of circuit. They did really well here last year. Of course, though, they did abandon that concept that they did well around here last year with. So you don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an unknown. Of course, Red Bull will be quick. We know that. Will Sergio Perez be quick? Of course, at his home Grand Prix last year, yet another DNF.
Weekend, yeah.
Yet another DNF for Sergio Perez. He's now obviously down in Brazil. Do we think he could have a half decent weekend? Do you think he bounces back, or do you think it's just a somewhat same old? We don't know.
I think it's something that he does need to do now, and he keeps saying, this is going to be my weekend. This is going to be my weekend, week after week after week after week. It's just, when does he finally get the axe from Red Bull, or when does he eventually just get that step up in form again?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be certainly something that we have to look out for. Tomato Head joins us in the comments saying with a very simple hello and welcome to the stream as well. Hello to you. And please be sure to comment in the comment section, guys. Please be sure to ask us some questions. Let us know where you're tuning in from. What do you think is going to happen this week? Who you're supporting? And of course, as I say, that poll is up. Go and participate in that. We will change the poll as the session goes on. And be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And go and check out our partner channel. Of course, our main channel being Forever Motorsports. It's where we do all of our Formula 1 content. We are, however, streaming live on Forever Sports this weekend. So be sure to like and subscribe to this channel as well, so that you'll be notified about when all of our streams go up.
Yes, for sure. So just looking at the moment, it is relatively overcast over the circuit. Not too hot as what we expected it to be. Today was meant to be one of the hotter days around the circuit, with what was expected throughout the week was there to be a little bit of rain in the morning and then a clear day. It has now switched around a little bit in Interlagos. It's so difficult to predict the weather around here, as we do finally have the titles rolling for Formula 1.
Yeah, so the titles are rolling, which means that we're going to get going with the practice session very shortly, within 5 minutes now, of course, of that start time. It'll be an hour long, the only session, of course, and then you'll join us for qualifying later. And don't be too hasty in terms of leaving the stream. We'll go straight to a review session on our other channel after each stream this weekend. So be sure to stick around for that, and you'll be pushed over to those various things. Chris here joining here saying, I'm supporting Ricardo from Latvia. Well, great to have you here as well. Tomato asking a question. Yeah, I love just saying that. Tomato is asking a question. Do you think Mercedes has a better chance of winning here than at Singapore?
Well, I do think that their car should have quite a lot of performance around here. Singapore suited their car type. This circuit should also suit their car type because it is a relatively medium to high downforce circuit. It is now looking relatively overcast and quite cold. So we'll just wait for those temperatures to be brought up. But this is round 21 of 23. So just Las Vegas and possibly the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, if it's not cancelled, left to get going. As we just watch over the rest of these stats here about this Grand Prix circuit. The track distance is 4.3 kilometers, 2.6 miles, with full throttle set at around 56% of the lap, and the track lap record being 1:07, with a top speed at 338 kilometers an hour with 15 turns and an elevation of 42.9 meters. Quite a lot of elevation around this circuit, and this race weekend Pirelli are bringing the middle of the range of their tires. So it is the C4, the C3, and the C2 compounds. So relatively in the middle of their tire compounds, going from C5 to C0. Just looking at throughout the rest of this circuit now, I'm hoping that Hamilton is going to do well here this year. It's been a while since we've seen him on the top step of that podium. As we get those stats about the temperature around the circuit, 29 degrees Celsius air temperature, 41 degrees Celsius track temperature. Humidity, though, is relatively high, and the I'm trying to think of the word now. The wind speed is 7.4 kilometers an hour, so that's also relatively high. The humidity is 54% around the circuit, so also really quite warm for all those drivers.
Exactly. So it's warm and it's looking like it's going to be wet later. So it's certainly going to be a tough weekend for these drivers. If they have to deal with wet conditions in not just qualifying, but perhaps the race as well as the sprint tomorrow. Sprint weekend, of course, results in a lot more danger for the cars in terms of their crashing and crashing out and damage that could be caused. So it's very important that all of these drivers be sure to hold on to the steering wheel. Don't hit up in a wall or something like that. It's right near the end of the season. They surely don't want these costs either.
Don't do a Kimi Räikkönen and go off the circuit. And I don't know if you know that video, Mark, but he went off the circuit before the final two corners, I think it is, and he went onto a sector of the old circuit and got lost a little bit there, I think back in his Lotus days. As we see a lot of Ferrari mechanics standing outside the Ferrari pit box, so possibly still some work going on that car, and they're just trying to block the views of the cameras. As we're seeing the Mercedes looking relatively ready to get out onto the circuit, Lewis Hamilton's car looking ready to go. George Russell sitting in his car at the moment as well. Looking at the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen sitting at 491 points in the championship, Perez with 240, Hamilton with 220, so really close now between Perez and Hamilton. Perez has to have another good weekend if he wants to stop Lewis Hamilton from stealing that second position in the championship. really difficult to do after he lost a lot of momentum last weekend.
Exactly that, and I think the fact that, of course, Perez didn't finish last weekend and Hamilton didn't finish the weekend before that, so everyone had thought it was all in Perez's hands right until Perez then dropped out. Looking at the Constructors' Championship, very close between Mercedes and Ferrari at the top there.
So still to fight for. If the two Ferraris can have another really good weekend now and Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi, then they could steal that second points position in the Constructors' Championship, and that means a lot of money for their team.
And that's, of course, if we actually have the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Yes.
There's a bit of news coming out about that they might have to actually cancel the Grand Prix. It's unlikely at this stage that will happen, but there is a rumor and there is a bit of a story starting to do the rounds that they could well look at cancelling the race because of all the activity and all of the events happening in the Middle East at the moment.
Yes, it would certainly be quite upsetting if that season finale is cancelled, but unfortunately, if that is it for the end of the season, then it doesn't really make too much of a difference because we have had the championship pretty much wrapped up already.
Exactly that. So the session has now started, everybody, and yeah, we've got an hour long. It will go. And I'm very, very keen to see what happens here. Tomato just asking a couple of questions. They're saying, which car do you think will be fastest in the wet weather? And does Lewis Hamilton have a special helmet for this weekend?
Max Verstappen is the first driver out on circuit. You should see him after he does come around on the outlap. What's wrong?
No, I was just asking you questions, but it's fine.
Sorry.
So which car do you think will be fastest in the wet weather?
The Red Bulls.
The Red Bulls.
Yes.
Okay. And does Lewis Hamilton have a special helmet for this weekend?
Yes, he does.
Yes. And
Yes,
what
he
is a special helmet?
A Brazil-inspired helmet.
But what does that mean? What has it got on it?
It's got the
Brazilian
Brazil
flag?
flag on it,
Okay,
yes,
so it's
on
got
the
the
top of the
Brazilian
helmet.
flag. Okay, perfect. There we go. So the session is underway. We see Max Verstappen's leading everybody out. Well, I say Max Verstappen's leading everybody out. It seems Lance Stroll.
No, he is.
Yes, no, it is
leading everyone.
Verstappen. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso following them. Not talking about Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll and those Aston Martins. They had a terrible, terrible weekend out last time out. Could they try and improve this weekend, or is it just a lost cause for Aston Martin?
Well, I think they need to now find data for the rest of the season and get a little bit more comfortable for 2024 with their car and the direction that they need to go in with their development for next season, because I think they need to just get to grips with that and hopefully start next season off well. But then, if they do start off the season well, they need to continue their development into the season and not get caught out like we've had this season.
Yeah, exactly. They can't get caught out with development. They had a great car to start with and then did not manage the season very well with regards to development. So Max Verstappen starting our first hot lap here in practice session 1. He's on a set of hard tyres. Ocon on the radio saying, there's a screw on my front tyre. It's not upside down, but it's sideways.
That's great for him.
Yeah, so... And being told, okay, understood, we're just going to have to hope that it comes off. We'll keep an eye on it.
Hopefully it doesn't come off and hit him in the visor. Max Verstappen, though, currently doing the first hot lap out on circuit. He's doing really, really quite well out there with a 19.0 in the first sector, 38.1 in the second sector, and he's going purple through the third sector as well now. Looking at other sector times set out there, as Verstappen finishes the lap now with a 113.9. Stroll currently doing a 19.4 in that first sector, and Alonso even slower than Stroll. They're all on hards right now.
Yeah, so Stroll crosses the line now with a 115.5, so he's already 1.6 seconds behind Verstappen, and now Alonso crosses the line with a 115.0, so only 1.1 seconds behind that Red Bull. Going to the comments here, we've got Kayla Jones joining us. Thank you so much for joining the stream. Saying, do you think Lando Norris has a chance to compete for a win this Grand Prix or this season?
Sorry, I was listening to you.
Well, if I had to answer the question, I think he's had chances. I don't think this weekend will be his chance, quite frankly. I don't think it's a circuit that's going to suit the McLaren as well as it probably hopefully would some other cars. And I think he's going to have to wait till next season.
It could suit them this weekend. It's similar to some other circuits like Austria where they did really well. So
I just don't think he'll get the win, is what I'm saying.
the win is a bit difficult, but if anything could happen, it's going to happen here with the rain or safety cars or anything else. This circuit can really be a bit of a menace in terms of strategy and can all get turned on its head in a couple of moments.
Yeah, so just looking at that average time gained lost, I mean, the McLarens have made up so much time
They've made up almost
this
an
season.
entire second in development this season, which is why they've been able to jump so far up the ranks. As Norris now goes second in the timings with a 1:14.5. Still far off though of Verstappen.
Yeah, but Verstappen likes to at the moment. We've seen this in the second half of the season, how he goes out very early in any practice session, sets a really quick time before then slowing down, basically just trying to scare the rest of the grid into knowing, oh, that's the pace we sort of got to find, and it's a real tester for everybody else. So Red Bull have been doing that many times this season. It's not surprising at all to see the other constructors a little bit far behind that. Of course, when it comes to qualifying, they're a lot closer to that as well. It's just right now we do see the Red Bull right at the top there, with everybody else chasing. Perez is only in third though at 1:14.9.
Yes, Perez, as you say, only down in third with 1:14.9. You'd expect him to be able to be a little bit closer to Verstappen right now. I hope that's not a beer being poured over that poor lady's head.
No, she's holding a beer and she's managed to spill on herself. So George Russell, of course, very famously last year, took his maiden Grand Prix victory here in 2022. What do you think he can do this year?
Well, I don't know if he has the upper hand over the two Mercedes right now. In the second half of the season, Lewis Hamilton seems to have a little bit more momentum on his side, as George Russell seems to get a little bit stuck with the new direction of the car. As Verstappen says, I think my seat is flexing. It's not installed correctly, but we can fix that after the run. And the team says, we are aware of that. It's not a reliability concern. And you're safe to pretty much continue out on track. Yuki Tsunoda pushes himself up into fifth now.
Yeah, indeed. Looking at the times actually here, Leclerc has crossed the line 0.2 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen's finishing up a very hot lap here. He's got 2 purple sectors, and then he does finish it up at 1:13.1. So now pushes that gap to Leclerc behind him to 1 second.
Yes, relatively impressive right now with all of them on the same type of tyres. Very interesting to see that everyone is just going with the same tyre set. So I'd expect everyone to be doing the same run plans and probably doing their race simulations.
It's exactly that. They're trying to get the car right, and they're trying to make sure they get the setup right for the race itself on Sunday. Of course,
and Verstappen clearly has gotten it perfect.
Well, not necessarily perfect. We've seen that time significantly improve in one lap. So I think he could see that lap time improve even further. Russell just saying traction feels very poor for this Mercedes. So
Perez moving further up the boards now with a 1:13.5 mark.
Yeah, so Perez just moving up in the boards. They're just looking at Russell here saying traction's very poor in his car. Of course, a weekend that we're looking for Mercedes to try and compete near the top, they're not something you really want to hear. I'm sure they'll sort it out though throughout the session.
Yes, they do have at least quite a few laps to do some different run plans and see what you're able to do for the race, as Lando Norris slides there out of, I think that's turn 10. Yes, it was. Coming through turn 11 now. What can he do for his lap time? He finishes that lap with a 1:14.3. Only best for fourth right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not brilliant from Lando Norris, unfortunately. Not managing to get anywhere near the top there. But again, this is, of course, just practice. We're trying to get the cars in a way that you want. We don't know how much fuel they're riding with. They don't know how much energy they're using throughout the lap. So all these different factors do play a part. That's why we'll know what sort of pace to expect from all the various constructors later on in qualifying.
We have Daniel Ricciardo out on circuit now as well. He's going through the first and second sector. I'm interested to see what he can do this weekend in regards to his pace compared to Yuki Tsunoda. He did really well last weekend out, of course, getting 7th or 8th place, I think. Where did he finish? Alonso, though, moves himself up into third mark with 1:13.8. Could Alonso and the Aston Martins be able to play a little bit this weekend?
No, I think they're completely out of the season right now. It's really upsetting.
I hope we're wrong.
I hope we're wrong. I very much hope I'm wrong, but I expect very little from Aston Martin now, because they've just tapered off so badly towards the end of the season, and I just do not see a light at the end of the tunnel for the 2023 season. I'm only hoping that 2024 will be a much better start for them, and they'll this time manage their development a lot better.
Yes, and that's what I think a lot of fans have been calling for next year, because of the fact that they did kind of throw away a lot of points this season by not developing as much as was necessary, and that's why they have now fallen away in these latter few races.
Yes, indeed. And we'll also talk about Gasly dropping over the line there with a let's just say 1:14.5. It's not brilliant there in that Alpine, but we'll talk about Alpine's season. What a hell of a season they've had in terms of just changes and problems and newsworthy items. I mean, they've never really been out of the news the entire season with regards to just rubbish happening in the team.
Yes, they have had a relatively cruddy season on their half, as Max Verstappen puts in another final faster sector. Piastri says his right mirror is broken as well in the car. So interesting to see from the McLaren driver there. it is interesting for Alpine, the fact that they've had so many administration issues on their side. Hopefully they will be able to have that all sorted next year and find a little bit more pace out on the racetrack.
Yeah, so we see Fernando Alonso makes his way back into the pits for Aston Martin, of course. He's one of the first ones after those runs to make his way in. The very last cars going out into track are the Williams drivers, Sargent and Albon, who Sargent has just entered the track now. Albon's still in the pits there, so we've yet to see those Williams drivers go out, as Perez is now going around. He's put in a personal best in the first sector, a purple sector in sector 2, and a personal best in sector 3, and is ever so slightly confused.
He's
because his time is
that
quicker.
was Max's last fastest
Yes, that would make
time,
more
that's
sense. Yes. So Perez goes just behind Max Verstappen, 0.025 seconds behind him. Just watching a replay here of, I think that's Carlos Sainz, going and taking a little bit of a drift there into one of the corners there. So we'll just need to watch that corner a little more carefully next time. As we now follow Hamilton, who's
Now
I think
you can see his
starting
new helmet for the race weekend with
yes, very, very shiny blue.
Yes.
For Brazil, with green also all over it, and the big Brazilian flag. So, of course, Lewis Hamilton, one of his favourite circuits, if I'm not mistaken, his favourite circuit that he's ever raced, and certainly one of his favourite people. He's got honorary citizenship in Brazil. They absolutely love him. They adore Lewis Hamilton, and he adores them. So, they're very keen to see how he can do this weekend as he starts a hot lap here. He's 0.078 seconds down in the first sector.
Just watching through his middle sector there, I see a few purple mini sectors for him, but just waiting for him to cross that timer. It's a 37.4. It's really quite close to Max Verstappen's middle sector through there.
The boss is really not far off from Max Verstappen's time right now. If he does half decently in sector 3, he should be fine, but he's got a couple of slower times, small mini sectors rather, already. And there he goes, moves into third position at 113.4, so 0.3 seconds down on Max Verstappen's time. Not too bad, though.
Not too bad there at all, but he does slide a little bit through his final sector as we're watching our live feed, which is a little bit delayed to our timing boards. He does slide a little bit through the end and the beginning of the end of the second sector, beginning of the third sector there. It is still very dusty though out on circuit, so still a lot of evolution to be had.
Well, that of course, and the wind is playing a big part as well. So when you're going around, you're having to fight with the wind a bit as well. As we just see all of those Lewis Hamilton fans in the stadium there, showing their support for the British driver. As now those two Williams drivers have made their way out onto track and are now also joining the practice session properly.
Yes, we finally have now all 20 cars out on circuit, so it's going to be really quite busy out there, and teams are going to get some good data at least in terms of following cars, but we could see a lot of drivers having their lap times impeded by traffic.
Yeah, indeed. And Kayla says, yeah, he's definitely had some chances. This is with regards to Lando Norris and winning a race. He's a great driver. I just hope it isn't too much for him until he gets his first win. Well, I mean, if we had to predict when Lando Norris will get his first win, when do you think it will be?
Russia 2018 or whenever, or 2020?
You can't go back.
I know. That was just such a unfortunate one for him. That was the closest that he was going to get for quite some time to get his first race win. Unfortunately, he just doesn't have the car underneath him just yet for a race win, but I'm hoping that McLaren are able to find some pace for next season and also compete, and we can have a few different race winners next year.
Yeah, I imagine next year you'll probably see McLaren there or thereabouts, because surely they'll have caught up a lot with regards to their development throughout the season for next season. So if they start the season well and they develop like they did this season, one imagines they will be competing right near the top there, and I hope to see Lando Norris win a race next season.
Yes, track limits though for Logan Sargent as he comes through turn 5. Going a little bit wide there, hopefully not causing any damage to his floor. It's not as aggressive as some of the other curbs we've seen throughout the season, so he should be alright. Just watching Kevin Magnussen going relatively slowly out on circuit. I think he's warming up on a lap now. That's possibly why. Just looking at his times. Yes, he's on a warm-up lap.
So Ocon finishes up his lap. He goes 0.88 seconds quicker than Verstappen. Well, slower than Verstappen, of course, not quicker. He's down in 7th now, 114.0 for himself. So not too bad there for the Alpine, but we're now starting to see a little bit more of where we stand with regards to pace with these constructors. We'll see a change, of course, throughout the rest of the session. I'm sure we'll see the Ferraris a little bit higher up, but we're starting to get a good indication that the Red Bulls are, of course, as they have been the entire season, still very, very quick.
What can we see here for the Haas's and Kevin Magnussen this weekend? Kevin Magnussen took pole last year around the circuit, Mark. So could we see him replicate that again?
No.
No.
It's very simple no, unfortunately. I don't see it happening. Although, if it is raining
I was
in
going to
qualifying,
say, but if it's raining,
it is raining
what
in
do you know?
qualifying, supposedly. So if it does happen to rain in qualifying, that opens it up to the entire field, and we'll see a whole lot of different, different sort of results right near the end there. So we've now already had about 15 minutes of the session pass. We've got 45 minutes remaining, and we currently see the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 Mercedes right at the top there, with Lando Norris in 5th, Alonso in 6th, and there's Ferraris down in 10th and 13th, respectively.
Yes, just looking at that gap though between Verstappen and Perez, it is really quite evenly matched at the moment, which bodes well hopefully for the race tomorrow and for qualifying a little bit later on this evening. Do we think Perez is going to be able to compete with Verstappen this weekend?
It's a difficult one because I think Perez is really struggling for confidence, and I think if he starts anywhere near the top, I think he's going to struggle to stay there simply because he's really had lapses in concentration. I think just with regards to the pressure that he's that's being put on him from the entire Formula One world, as the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg moves himself into 4th position with a 113.6.
Just watching Charles Leclerc coming through the final few sectors, he's put his car up into 7th place with a 113.8. A lot of drivers now in that 113 mark, all the way down to 8th with Alonso, are all in that 113 zone. So I think it's going to be a relatively close qualifying here today, if it is dry for at least more than 2 sessions. But at least I still think we should get maybe the mid 112s, maybe 111s. Max Verstappen's out of the car though. He's back in the pits. I don't know what he's doing. Possibly just changing a little bit in terms of setup on his car. And then he'll go out on another set of tyres. I say we could get into the 112s. I think we might even get into the 110s because, of course, he's only on a set of hards now. They should find a lot more pace on a set of softs.
Yeah, it's exactly that. We'll find so much more pace than softs. We could even see ourselves in the 111s. It's going to be quite a difficult challenge, I think, but the 111s, maybe even, depending on how quick those soft tires are, the 110s. So it's going to be very, very quick. As you see, Russell puts a new purple sector in Sector 2, a 37.27. He finishes up his lap in 3rd, a 113.2. So right next to those Red Bulls, literally almost identical.
Yes, very close to those 2 Red Bulls, but of course, those Red Bulls did get those lap times in a little bit early on and less... trying to think the word now. Less rubbered up track.
Yes, exactly that. So Alonso now, I think he's starting up a hot lap here in his Aston Martin. Let's see how he fares in this lap, looking at his times that he's putting in. Couple of personal bests in the second sector. First sector, though, was slower than he's put in previously. Second sector could look to be quite an improvement. Let's see how he fares as he nears the end of that part of the track. Are we looking at a 113 for him, perhaps? He's already put himself in the 113s, a 113.8. Could we go quicker than that for Alonso? He's finishing up Sector 2 now.
These tyres do look relatively old, though, unfortunately, so I don't think he does have the tyres to put in a faster lap. Is he faster in the second? He is
faster in the second sector than he has.
But I don't see any purples or greens in the final sector, unfortunately, for himself. He does move himself, though, up into 6th, so much better from himself with the 113.7. Pretty good on those old hard tyres.
Yeah, not too bad, Chick. Kayla asking a question here, or at least making a statement. Saying, I assume the car has been modified throughout the season to fit what Max likes in the car, and it's not working well for Perez because he was doing well at the start of the season. Well, now, would you back that as the reason, or would you say it's more down to Perez and his incapability of finishing a race, basically, and making a few mistakes?
I think it's a bit of both. Of course, they are going to develop the car in the direction of your champion. That's natural. He's the one leading the team. But I think Sergio Perez has had a say in the direction of the development in the car. And they have said that publicly at Red Bull. And I think possibly it's just he is struggling a bit with the mental game of Formula One. It is very, very difficult to keep that consistency up and that... it's just a very mentally demanding sport. You're traveling a lot, especially Sergio Perez. He has a new child as well in the family. Not necessarily putting all the blame on that, but there's a lot of factors that do play in.
No, that's exactly that. I think Max Verstappen has certainly had the car built around him far more than Perez has. But it's an interesting one because you talk about developing the car, and of course they do develop the major upgrades with regards to their main driver
your
in
faster
their head
driver
at least.
yeah.
But it should always pretty much also benefit your other driver as well, because it's essentially just making the car itself quicker. So it's a difficult one, and of course there's
difficult
certain.
to say that though, because drivers have different driving styles. So Max likes a pointy car where it's not as oversteer or understeer. He likes it to be very direct on the front nose. Whereas Perez, I don't know what he likes. Maybe he likes a more neutral car compared to Verstappen.
But it's also an interesting one because, you know, they do have two different cars. The two different cars are set up ever so slightly differently for each driver, because they, of course, do prefer hitting corners at certain speeds and coming out of corners at different speeds.
Alonso's got a puncture.
Oh dear, Alonso's got a puncture indeed. I think he's making his way back. Not a serious one. He's making his way back to the pits right now. He's managed to make his way there. He's got a small puncture. He's going to make his way back into the pits. And Leclerc finished up a lap there. A 1:13.6. So moving himself further and further up the field, slowly but surely.
Interesting. We're hearing a lot of issues for drivers out on circuit. We're waiting to hear if they're possibly related out on circuit, because of course there was the broken visor for Logan Sargent, something wrong with his visor, he said. Then there was a broken wing mirror for Oscar Piastri. Now there's a puncture on the tire of the left rear for Fernando Alonso. Interesting to hear. There was also, I think, was it Ocon who had the screw on his tire that he saw?
Yes, it was Ocon. I think that had a screw that was on his front right tire, I think he said. So we had that instance earlier, as we now have crossed a third of the way rather through I keep wanting to say the wrong things, through practice. So we're watching a replay here of Oscar Piastri come into the pits. Does he go over the lines a little bit? He does go over the lines a little bit. Oh, and he locks up just slightly before that pit entry as well. So
got on the white line. That could be why. They have been freshly painted. Now there's a nice black strip of rubber going through there where Oscar Piastri locked up. But at least it is still practice. They shouldn't get a penalty for that just yet.
Indeed. So most of our drivers have made their way back into the pits, and they're going to get ready for the next part of their simulation. That's why I always mark a third of the way through each session, because we do find these race simulations, or at least the simulation periods that these teams tend to run in, are 20-minute periods.
Yeah.
So we see that
especially in a weekend like this where they try to condense their programs and fit it into that hour session.
Exactly that. We've crossed now 200 viewers. Thank you so much, guys, everybody, for joining. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Please be sure to smash that like button right now. Go and do it if you have not already done so, and let us know where you're tuning in from. Of course,
and do be sure, if you want motorsport dedicated content, this channel of course is more towards the rugby based things, but we also have our dedicated motorsports channel called Forever Motorports. Do be sure to go and check that out. It should be linked in the description of this video. Yeah, do be sure to go and check that out. Thank you very much though for joining us, and also do be sure to check out our channel partners BOYLESPORTS and BITDEFENDER. BITDEFENDER for all of your cybersecurity needs. Check out the global leaders in cybersecurity, BITDEFENDER, who make sure that all of your home computer systems and your home devices are all protected and secure from cyber attacks.
Exactly that. And also our other channel partner, BOYLESPORTS. If you're into betting and you want to go and play a little bit and see if you can make some money from some betting, go and be sure to sign up using this, the link in the description. You can go and predict the podium this weekend, and you can win your share of 1,000 Rand in extra bets. So really, really good deal there from BOYLESPORTS, one of our main partners on the channel. So go check them out in the description. As Yuki Tsunoda, Reece, crosses the line much, much quicker than everybody else. It's the first time we've seen mediums.
On mediums, yes.
And it's into the 112s already, a 112.8. So significantly quicker than those hards.
Significantly quicker out there on circuit. We'd expect the drivers to be able to go quite a lot faster on the next stint. The Red Bulls are, of course, going to be relatively quick on these tyres. This is going to be their race tyre. So I think they're going to be relatively quick. They're going to do 20-minute segments, I think, on every single set of tyres, so they can get the most understanding throughout the session.
Just watching a replay of Lewis Hamilton's car there, just bottoming it out quite badly on the track as he goes along the floor, just catching quite a bit of the circuit. So an interesting one that Mercedes will just need to take note of.
Yes, Mercedes will need to take a little bit of a note of that. Hopefully they won't be running their car too low. They don't want to have any ride height or plank wear issues again this weekend.
No.
There's a lot of support for Lewis Hamilton there in the grandstands. Watching Valtteri Bottas get a little bit too deep on the curbs there into the center S through turn 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, so looking now, and Williams joins the track right behind him. And there's another Williams also starting his lap right behind that Williams that's just come out. I think it's Albon that's just came out, and Sargent is starting a hot lap. So he'll have to get past his teammate there. So again, most of the drivers in the pits, though, we do see some drivers coming out and starting their next simulations. Looks like we could be changing tyres for these simulations. So that's something to watch as well. Bottas going a little bit slower in the first sector already. Doesn't look like it's going to be improving anything now. And Hamilton still finishing up his first simulation period as he's still on 11-lap-old hard tyres. Stroll as well on 12-lap-old hard tyres. Down in 12th.
Just looking at the moment at Alpine, they're running specific components for this race weekend. They're running a higher downforce front wing for this weekend with newer designed little like flicks on the front of the wing or on the back of the wing to better direct the air to the rear of that car. So you can also see throughout the front sector of that wing, it is very, very flat. Which also just helps the sculpt there a little bit more.
Exactly that. I think the engineer got a little bit of a fright there, suddenly finding one of the commentators right next to him, explaining exactly what he's doing as they're just quickly having a clean around the car. Watching a replay of Zhou Guanyu come into turn 1, just locks up very badly on the front left.
There.
And
yeah, goes wide there, missing the apex. That will cause him to lose about 200-300 tenths.
Yeah, so quite a bad spot. It's just, oh my word, yeah.
Those tyres are old though on that car. You can see they've been running for quite a few laps now on those hards. So we'll expect them to come into the circuit, into the pits relatively soon and put on a new set of tyres. So still, Yuki Tsunoda is the only driver on a set of mediums at the moment, as Verstappen and Perez are on an outlap. What tyres are they going to be on though?
Yeah, I'm hoping to see some medium tyre runs from them. Just trying to see an angle of that Red Bull. No, they still seem to be on... Are those softs maybe even? I think those might have been softs. I'll have to confirm that. They didn't look like hard tyres. Let's put it that way. I might be completely wrong, but...
I think they may have been mediums.
Yeah, we'll have to have another look. It was very, very quick as we're watching Albon go around on his lap. He's on a set of hards, still doing some race simulations there, so nothing too fancy in terms of his times. He's still currently 2.3 seconds down on Yuki Tsunoda's time, which is the quickest on the circuit with the 2 Red Bulls following. But they're now on track doing out laps. I think we're about to see some new fastest laps around the circuit.
Just looking at Yuki Tsunoda's time, he finishes with a 112 or 115.7 Albon rather, sorry, as the fans are all really excited for Lewis Hamilton, saying, "You're my favorite Brazilian." That's quite funny, of course, because he does have that honorary citizenship.
There we go.
We're watching now.
George Russell. Sorry, George Russell's on a set of mediums as well. So the first medium tyre run for George Russell. And he's gone purple in the first sector. The second sector's got a purple mini sector, as well as a couple of mini sectors that are currently his best, as well as another purple mini sector. So we could be looking at the new fastest time here. I think the 112s, even the low 112s potentially.
Low 112 possibly. The Red Bulls are on hards. Still hards.
Still hards. Very interesting from the Red Bulls. So, yeah, Perez is going around 19.0 as his first sector. So, still not going quicker than they have been previously. But we could see Mercedes put the new fastest lap as a 36.6 is put in from George Russell in Sector 2. So, really motoring around the circuit. We are sure to see a low 112 out on track from the Mercedes driver.
Yes, he's going really, really fast out on circuit on those mediums. And he does finish his lap now with a 111.8. Max Verstappen went into the 112s on those hards, but George Russell goes even faster with a 111.8, the first 111 of the day.
So can we even see the 110s on the soft side?
I said 110s. I thought so.
It's going to be very, very quick this afternoon, or rather later on, for qualifying. Yeah, Max Verstappen, as you said, just before that, managed to put...
Where we do put up all the news throughout the week. I think we may have lost connection there for a second, but we are back now. Just a small drop in connection for you guys. But just to go over again, we will be going through every single racing session this race weekend.
Yes, indeed. And also, we'll be doing a review on our partner channel, which is Forever Motorsports, as we said. So we'll be reviewing every session there. So don't go anywhere at the end of the session. We'll go and review it. We'll go and chat about it. You can ask some questions. We can, all of us, have a discussion about what we just saw. And, of course, we'll do that on the other channel. And Reece does a lot of news videos throughout the week, as well as some information videos. So be sure to go and subscribe to that channel. It really is a fantastic place and a fantastic community that we've managed to build up slowly but surely. It's just crossed 2,000 subscribers. We're trying to get that up further, similar to this channel, which is now almost at 70,000 subscribers. And thank you so much to everybody who has subscribed to these two channels. So, yeah, I mean, we're seeing now everybody coming out of the pit, starting the next sessions here. as Russell is still currently up top with a 111.8. Very, very quick from him. So what could we expect from the Red Bulls?
I think the Red Bulls are going to be able to do a relatively comfortable 111.5, 111.4, possibly even on these medium tyres.
Okay, so
We'll have to wait and see.
Exactly. So we see the Ferraris come out on a set of mediums. Here's Carlos Sainz. No, he's on hards. What am I talking about? He's still on hards. Still on hards.
Still down, though, on his teammate Charles Leclerc. He's 0.088 down, so relatively close. But we have seen throughout the middle half of the season that Charles Leclerc has been able to up the pace a little bit more and eke ahead of Carlos Sainz.
But Carlos Sainz was slowly but surely eking towards becoming the main driver of Ferrari because of his performances in the middle of the season here. But Charles Leclerc now starting to stamp his foot down again and basically try and prove himself worthy of that number one spot at Ferrari. So a little bit of tension in between. I'm sure the two of them love each other and they're not really fighting all that much. But I'm sure there must be a little bit of background noise with regards to who actually is number one driver. So Charles Leclerc just trying to put his foot down and say, no, it's actually me.
Yes, of course, they will be trying to kind of just show their dominance a little bit, display their dominance like animals, really. Just trying to get that number one spot a little bit more secure at their own team, because at the moment it is pretty level between those two drivers.
Yeah, and also that's what you want. You want two drivers that are fighting it out. It's what you're seeing in McLaren as well, is why they're doing so well. Piastri and Norris really fighting out with each other. Of course, Norris still coming out on top most of the time, but Piastri's a rookie. I think when it comes next season, you could see Piastri really competing very well as he puts in a new personal best in Sector 1. Let's see what he does in Sector 2.
Piastri's been putting quite a bit of pressure on his teammates at the moment because Lando Norris hasn't really been able to compete with the likes of Piastri's pace at certain tracks like in Spa. Of course, Piastri was crashed into in the race, but in the sprint race, he won it.
Yeah, he did win the sprint race, which is something that's quite rare for rookies to have done. And he's
It
still looking...
counts as a race win, where Lando Norris hasn't done that yet.
Yeah, so... Look, I don't really count sprint races as big race wins. The moment Lando Norris wins a sprint race, I'll be happy for him, but it's not quite winning a proper Grand Prix weekend. Piastri, of course, yet to do that still. He was very close to doing it in the same race weekend, just wasn't as quick as those Red Bulls.
Well, he got crashed into in the first corner of the race.
That's a good point. I'm talking about the wrong weekend.
Yes.
But yes, I'm just looking here, of course, at Magnussen, who was on pole last year in 2022 at 111.6 was the time he set to get pole position. I think we're going to be
111.8, so we're definitely going to be
are going to be a lot quicker than last year's pole position time. So unless of course it rains, which we won't see anything quicker. I think also, to be fair, last season we did get a little bit of rain infringing on the session.
Yes.
It wasn't wet the whole session, but it was, I think, if I remember correctly, one of those half dry, half wet sessions where it's like, go out, but
yeah,
yes, sort of.
You choose, slicks or dries, slicks or wet tires. As Kevin Magnussen's going around at the moment, all the way down in P20, he sets an 18.6 for the first sector.
He's on a set of softs,
yes,
which is, of course, the first one.
So 0.1 down on Russell's time already through the first sector. What can he do now? Comes through the second sector, no purple mini sectors for him. We also have Hulkenberg on a set of softs now as well.
So Hulkenberg on a set of softs. Let's see the battle between those two teammates. Hulkenberg, let's see the time that he's going to put in. He's got no... Well, he hasn't started his lap yet, to be fair. So we'll see what he does as he does start his lap. Magnussen gets a new personal best in Sector 2 as well. He's heading towards the end of Sector 3. We should be seeing him in the 112s, I think, or perhaps the 130. There you go, 112.66 for Kevin Magnussen. He moves himself into third, still behind Alonso, who finished that lap on a set of hard tyres.
Just shows how quick Alonso is on those set of hard. So I think we should be able to have him in contention this race weekend.
And he's just also put another 112.9 in that Aston Martin on another set of hards as well. So he's really doing well
in race simulations. So really quite impressive as we're seeing some other drivers just doing their outlaps. Logan Sargent sets a purple mini sector on his outlap there. Interesting.
Does he?
Albon sets purple mini sectors on his current lap though as well.
Yeah, so
that's relatively impressive.
Russell's currently going right. He set 2 purple mini sectors in Sector 2. I think he could be going for a little bit of a fly here. He's going slower through most of his mini sectors, but I think he's still actually going for it a little bit in this lap. So he could be quite close to his previous time. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what sort of times he puts in as he's nearing the end of Sector 2 now. What sort of time does he put in? 37.19. That's still quite quick, but I don't think it's going to be quick enough to compete anywhere near his original time of 111.865.
Our oh, there we go. It's just stopped. I was going to say our tracker says that it's raining on circuit, but it's just gone away now. I didn't think it was raining.
No, it's not raining at all. But there is rain supposedly scheduled for qualifying later today, and it's also a very windy day here in Sao Paulo, and the humidity is very high, and the sun is out now. It wasn't out earlier. It is now starting to shine in the pit lane as I think that's Hulkenberg making his way into the pits, perhaps just to have a look at a couple of things there.
Possibly he's taken an excursion over the curves a little bit, and he decided that he'd come in and just get his floor looked at. But all seems to be okay at the moment, as we're watching the last few drivers just go out on those sets of hards. Hopefully they all come in relatively soon and put on a set of mediums or softs.
Yeah, so Lando Norris looking at his form recently, 4th, 3rd, 10th, 4th, and then, of course, in Mexico, very disappointing, 20th.
Yes, not very impressive for him there, unfortunately.
No.
Ooh, bit of a moment between
That's-
Nico Hulkenberg and
That's why he's in the
Lando
pits.
Norris.
That's why he's in the pits. Nico Hulkenberg on a slow outlap here got hit by Lando Norris, who's on a flyer. Just turned in on him a little bit to Nico Hulkenberg. Came
No,
out of nowhere.
he stayed straight. Looking at the McLaren, the McLaren engineers just looking very confused there. Very interesting accident to have between those two drivers.
I mean, you don't normally see that in practice.
No, not at all.
So very interesting to see the two clash. They'll probably have an instant reviewed there to see who was at fault, and they'll just, I'm sure, sweep it under the carpet and say, hey, that was naughty, be careful next time. Between the two of them, I don't think there's any one driver at fault, because Hulkenberg didn't really change his line too much, but perhaps he was on the racing line a bit too much as well, so it's one of those.
Yeah, I think it will be looked into, but I don't think it will result in all too much. Do be sure to let us know who you're who you're supporting for this race weekend, and let us know down in the comment section, as well as do be sure to like the video and subscribe to this channel, as well as our motorsport dedicated channel for this race weekend, as well as for all the other race weekends and next year's Grand Prix season, which is set to be quite exciting off the back of a dominant Red Bull season. I think that a lot of the other teams are going to be pushing a lot over the winter to get closer.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking of pushing, we've got Hulkenberg in Sector 2, putting a purple sector there in Sector 2, and a personal best in Sector 1. We could be looking at what could be, I keep saying could, apparently, the quickest time of the day. Certainly at least the 112s, maybe the 111s. It's going really, really quickly. There he goes. Oh, so close to Russell time. A 111.928. Just 0.063 seconds behind George Russell. And Magnussen only a 112.6. Really far down on his teammate.
Yes, it is relatively far down on his teammate. Where is Hamilton right now? Hamilton's 116.8 on his last lap. I think he's still doing some race simulations on those hards.
Yeah, so race simulation still happening that side. Lots of drivers out on circuit. We've got a mixture of simulations right now. Most of them, of course, racing simulations, with the exception of maybe those Haasers who went out in softs. Maybe there's still race simulations on the softs. I doubt there were quali sims, because I think you should hopefully aim to get a little bit quicker on those quali sims, because if Russell managed to go around on a 111.8 on a set of mediums, and the Haasers can't beat that on a set of softs, a little bit of problems for Haas.
Yes, it could be a little bit of issues for Haas there. Just watching a moment from Lando Norris sliding through one of the turns around the circuit. Looking more like a rally car there than a Formula 1 car, but keeping it within the white lines, at least for now.
Yeah, so at least he's sort of keeping the car out of the wall. Nobody's really had any big issues this session so far, as we're about 21 and a half minutes away from the end of this only practice session in Sao Paulo. So nobody's really had any big moments. Of course, the only thing we can talk about is Hulkenberg and Norris just connecting slightly with each other. It was a very, very small, minor connection. No damage between the two of them. So not a problem there. But that was about the only thing to speak of in terms of moments. Everybody else, however, has managed to keep it within the lines quite well. No major instance whatsoever. No spins, no going into the wall, no danger set yet. But I think we might have a little bit more of that towards the end of the session, when we have more of our qualifying simulations, where everybody really pushes their cars a little bit more than normal. And getting a little bit too close on some of those curbs, maybe.
Zhou Guanyu currently out on circuit on a set of medium tyres. He finishes up that lap with a 113.5, not too bad, but you'd expect that to be a bit quicker.
Especially on the mediums where you've seen
Yeah.
a lot of hard tires. I'm still amazed with Alonso's hard tire run.
Yes.
I don't know if that's just a complete outlier. Of course, he did come out on another set of hard tires, so it's a new set of hard tires that he came out on.
Was it? Or
Yeah,
was
it
it
was.
not just the same?
No, it was because he's still out on track doing some simulations, and they're only 9 laps old, so they're not nearly as old as the other ones that he went back in on. So it was new hard tires that he came out on, but still putting himself ahead of Max Verstappen and putting himself ahead of half the grid, who's done some of those laps on softs and mediums, some of them. So really, really impressive from Alonso.
I'm interested to see the fact that he went out on 2 sets of hards. Why would they waste 2 sets?
No idea, but he definitely came out on a new set of hards. So very weird from Aston Martin and their decisions there. As we now do get past 2/3 of the way through this race, and we're now going to head into quali simulation time.
Yes, we are going to head into quali simulation time in the next couple of minutes, as we do see a bunch of drivers in the pits now. Where's the 2 Red Bulls? There, Perez is on an outlap, as is Max Verstappen. So we're going to wait and see what tyres they go out and put on. Now, hopefully, they're on a set of softs.
Yeah, indeed. Hopefully they are all on set of softs now. We see those clouds. They're very dark in the distance
Yes.
there. So I think we definitely could have rain later on here in Sao Paulo. Going back to the comments here, we've got a few people joining us. Percy joining us again saying, hello, I've just arrived home. Did I miss anything important?
Sorry, I'm getting air in here.
Yes, so no problem. We've got, did I miss anything important? Well, nothing really too...
Other than Hülkenberg and Norris having a little bit of a scuffle,
yeah.
there hasn't been too much to talk about in this session.
Other than Alonso going very quickly on a set of hards, as Magnussen has now improved upon his time, a 1:12.5. Still slow on Hülkenberg's time, but at least gone ahead of Alonso now on those set of softs. And Naval joining us also saying, I'm going with Max, but I hope Alonso has a good weekend. Indeed, we hope so. And Suzanne joining us from Europe, Netherlands. Go, Max, go.
Yes, go Max, go. It should be a good weekend for him once again. Off of a relatively dominant season, Max Verstappen should be quick around here. I think he does quite like the circuit. I don't think he's won at the circuit though in the Red Bull.
No, it's actually a good point. I don't think Max Verstappen has one in Brazil. So maybe that's something he's going to try and add to his tally for the season. Of course, he's broken quite a few records already, breaking curses, winning at races he's never won at before. He's the first driver to win 16 wins in a season. Could he extend that to 17, maybe even 18 or 19?
Out on a set of hards. They've gone out again on hards.
And
Still trying to get their setup perfect for the race.
exactly that. I mean, it's very, very odd. Then also Verstappen and Perez, to be fair to them, they also came out in new hards because they've only got 13 lap old
They've been in
tires.
the
So
pits a couple of times though, so I think it is the same set, Mark.
well, we have to see. So I mean, it could well be. It could very
Perez
well be.
tires have graining on the left rear, so I think it is a set of old medium or old hards. Watching Nico Hülkenberg still running out on those sets of softs at the moment. It is quite hot on circuit. We're seeing a lot of degradation on some of the team's tires there. As Gary says, found you. I've been looking for the other channel. Yes, we did jump across to this channel for the race weekend. As we see Nico Hülkenberg backing off a lap there and going into the pits now.
Yeah, so he goes off into the pits. I think he's done with these soft tires for the day. I think he might well come in and put on some old hard tires again. Maybe do some more race sims because I think they've finished their soft tire runs there, at least for race simulation soft tires. Maybe those were quali sims. I'm hoping they weren't quali sims because if they were very slow. Although he's gone straight through the pits and he's going to come back out the other side. So maybe he's just trying to give himself a gap. I think there's too much traffic and I think he's trying to give himself a bit of a gap.
Possibly also just trying to cool his tires down a little bit. Of course, when you're out on circuit, you can only drive at a certain speed for so long. So you're not allowed to really cool down those tires too much. So possibly just coming through the pits allows them to cool those tires down that little bit more. And then he gets out onto circuit and goes and puts in one more final hot lap.
So Logan Sargent finds himself right at the back of the grid right now in terms of his time, as per usual, with a 1:14.19. It's in the 1:14s. There's only three drivers rather that are in the 1:14s. It's Bottas, Ricciardo, Sargent. Ricciardo not having a good time around the circuit at the moment either. So those three right at the bottom, the only ones in the 1:14s. Meanwhile, we're heading into the 1:11s. Of course, they have still only done those on hard tyres, so not taking it to heart. A Sargent now, having been right at the back of the grid, starts a hot lap here on a set of softs and immediately goes off into the runoff area, messes up his lap.
Yeah, messes up those tires, unfortunately. So he'll have to abort that lap and just limp the car back home.
Yeah, I mean, what a terrible, terrible start for Logan Sargent there. I mean, you've seen this sort of mistake from Sargent many, many a time, unfortunately. He has started hot laps and gone straight off multiple times. We just see exactly that. Makes that misses the first turn completely and then just heads off into that
He's
runoff
actually
area.
fine into the first apex. He comes onto the radio. Just waiting for that message to come through.
Oh, he does have a little bit of a lockup. He does have a lockup because that's why that line suddenly comes right there. So he locks up into turn one ever so slightly after missing the apex a little bit. So, really terrible putting a flat spot immediately on that new fresh pair of softs. A fresh set of softs, rather, not a pair. There's 4 tires, not 2. I've said that all season, and I think it's going to be my thing from now on. A set of softs, not a pair. So Williams won't be too chuffed with that, having put him out on a fresh set of softs. I don't know if he's going to come back into the pitch, maybe just starts another hot lap and just tries to go again. Looks like he's starting again, so we'll see what he does now in the second attempt. Hopefully he'll actually get the first corner done relatively well. He needs to try and get himself much further up the field. We want to see himself in the top 5. We want to see in those 110s and 112s rather than 111s, of course, for minimum for Logan Sargent. You should be aiming for the 111s on a set of softs. Let's see if he can do that. Watching his times right now, I'm not seeing any sectors being put in from himself or slower, supposedly, unless it's just still tracking from his previous lap. He's got a couple of personal bests in the second sector, but still going quite slowly as Logan Sargent. So nothing to speak about in terms of impressiveness from him.
Well, we'll watch his teammate then instead as Albon is starting a hot lap. I'm interested to see what his car can do around here. It's not necessarily as suited to those Williams anymore because they quite like the high-speed circuits. This is a bit more of a low-speed circuit. But just watching him through the first sector, he's doing all right. Not too much faster than his previous lap time, but an 18.7.
Now, can I just point out, going back to Logan Sargent, his teammate, is going slower around the circuit than he was on hards. He finishes up his lap, and it's still slower than his hards lap. And that was a fresh set of softs. So terrible for Sargent. Albon, though, puts in a personal best in Sector 1. Stroll puts in a personal best in Sector 1. I think he's also out in softs. Oh, there you go. Sargent's saying something's wrong with my left tyre. So
my left front, yeah.
So, I think that's why he went slower. I think he's probably made his way back into the pits, or maybe he's just, I think that's probably why he was going so slowly.
See, does he come? No, this is around the back of the circuit. So waiting to see if he does come back into the pits then at the end of this lap. Alex Albon, though, coming around a little bit more. Lance Stroll, what's some purple mini sectors, Mark? 18.7.
Well, I was saying. So Lance Stroll was going around, and I think what we assume is a set of softs. He's got a couple of purple mini sectors in Sector 1 as well as Sector 2. Sector 2 is a personal best, very, very close to a couple of other times. As Albon moves himself into third position at 112.044. So almost into those 111s, just not quite, just missing out on it. Which again is still disappointing with him going on a set of softs.
He's ahead of Stroll, though.
Hulkenberg, though, just comes into second position there. Although I don't know if that's
old.
That's why did it move Albon further down? I don't know, but Stroll now moves into fourth, as you say, 112.1.
Yes, relatively good from those drivers to get up to the top there, but as we say, they are some of the first drivers to get on a set of soft runs and be competitive. Just watching at the moment what Stroll does out there as he comes through that final sector. We did talk about
it's on mediums.
He's
on
mediums.
mediums. So that's actually very good. That's very good, though. On the medium tires, it's not too much slower than the Mercedes. I think he could have gone around a little bit better. It's better, basically, if Stroll is close enough to the Mercedes or the quickest medium tire time, then we know Alonso can beat it, essentially. That's our precursor. Just watching Logan Sargent here, seeing those issues with that front left. I'm not so sure I'm seeing too many issues. Maybe just locks up again slightly, just goes off the track slightly again. Track limits becoming a thing.
There. He does keep locking up.
And then he rocks so I don't know if this is his driving or maybe just the tire struggling. It does take a lot of
tire bounces. That's possibly why, because it's just not going because it's not touching the ground.
They just can't get going. I mean,
it's not touching the ground.
My word, look at how long it just stays still, doing absolutely nothing, that Pirelli tyre.
That car is set up too stiff, unfortunately. That is why it's cocking up its leg there. And it literally cannot put that car to the ground. So it's either got a crack in the suspension or they've just set it up a little bit too stiff for this race.
That was absolutely bizarre. He goes around an entire corner where his tyre does not touch the circuit. He's literally three-wheeling it through the whole corner. I've not seen that before. Absolutely bizarre.
I have seen it on some of the older cars, but not on these new spec cars, that's for sure.
No,
they
not
are
at all.
massive, so it's kind of obvious when it does happen.
Do you go into the comments here? We've got a couple of people joining us here, just saying George's contract, of course, and Lewis Hamilton's contract's going until 2024 and 2025.
No, they're both 2025.
Both 2025 now, sorry. And a couple of people joining us here. Tandor joining us from SA, so welcome to you. Isaac joining us, hello, welcome to you. And ASO winning formula says, I think the race results will be number 1, George Russell, number 2, Max, number 3, Lewis Hamilton, number 4, Norris, number 5, Charles Leclerc. Well, an interesting prediction. Of course, it's going with George Russell winning yet again, as he did last year. Verstappen on the radio being told, just be aware, Max, it is quite gusty out there, as I've said throughout the session, variable lap to lap. And he says, yeah, it's quite hard, to be honest.
To be consistent.
To be consistent, sorry. So I was trying to read, it was a bit further away from me. And also, blue on black is really not the best writing they could have done. As we're now watching Lando Norris on a set of mediums go around and Piastri on a set of softs. And he puts in a purple's first sector.
And there's a bit of work going on the front suspension of the Ferraris. So interesting to see there, as you say, Piastri and Lando Norris setting purple sectors out there. Norris with the fastest middle sector, that goes away now to Piastri.
Is expected, of
They
course.
are on mediums, though.
No, Norris is on mediums,
Norris
Piastri's on soft. So we do expect Piastri to be quicker. But let's see how quick Lando Norris can go around. Although he finishes up as that clearly had problems in the final part of the sector. Unfortunate for him. But Piastri now crosses the line. Does he go quickest overall right now? Win that in that McLaren?
He runs a little bit too wide.
A little bit too wide. And then also messes up his lap right at the end
no,
there.
I'm talking about Lando Norris.
Well, so does the Piastri. Clear. I think that both of them make the way. Yeah, Piastri makes his way into the pits as well, I think. So disappointing for the two McLarens, who both, of course, I think messed up right near the end. I think the wind might have got
they
them.
were messing up or possibly just holding their cards close to their chest for now.
And here's the camera desperately looking for a McLaren to make his way around, and then finds us actually in the pits. He was waiting for him to watch there. I think the cameraman was very upset. He was like, yes, I'm going to go and get the fastest lap crossing the line here. And he makes his way into the pits. So he goes, oh, no car for me, unfortunately.
I think McLaren think that they're quite comfortable for now. They don't want to show their upper hand just yet.
But the problem is that most decent engineers in the other teams would have been able to predict what sort of time they would have done had they actually not lifted off right then and gone into the pits. So it doesn't really hide all that much as Gasly moves himself into fifth on a set of mediums, a 1:12.1.
Yes, good lap time from Pierre Gasly in that Alpine on a set of mediums, as you say. Fastest final sector through there. What else is happening out on circuit? I see a purple mini sector. That's Norris's time.
Ricardo's going around on a set of
okay.
mediums. He's trying to improve his time. He's got a personal best at 18.899. He's not been doing too well on the set of hards so far this session. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda further up the field, right up there in 10th position. Ricardo now also setting a couple of personal bests in the second sector as well. So let's see what sort of times he'll finish up with.
Old Man Rue there in the comment section saying Danny Rick hasn't fired yet, or maybe fired up yet.
That's what he means.
Yeah, so let's see whether he can just gain that momentum a little bit more before the qualifying session, as we see some other drivers setting some sectors now. We see Ocon finishing up a lap. Where does he put himself? He comes around the final corner now, crosses the line, and he goes...
9th.
Sorry, I lost
9th.
That's why.
No, don't worry. 9th. Yes, indeed. Ricardo also finishing up his lap now. He's got two mini sectors to go, and he should put himself right up there in top 10. He does. 9th position at 1:12.7. Still a whole second down on Russell's medium tyre run. So quite disappointing, I think, for AlphaTauri and Ricardo. I think they need to be finding some more time around the circuit. I don't think they've got the car quite right just yet. So a little bit of work still needs to happen there. We have crossed 400 viewers. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We've got just about 7 minutes left of the session. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We do, as you can see, sometimes we do our live streams here, as well as on our partner channel, Forever Motorsports.
Yes, as Lindue says there, hello everyone. I got my track times wrong. I thought FP1 would start at 5:30. Well, if you are a little bit confused about the track times for this race weekend, do be sure to go and check out my track guide, or my race preview rather, in the Forever Motorsports channel. That does tell you the weather predictions for this weekend, my predictions for this weekend, as well as all the track times, and just some more information about the track.
Hulkenberg was just on the radio there, very interesting, saying he lost power after he went over the curb in turn 4. So a little bit of concerns there for Haas with regards to that. So they're going to have a serious look at that. Looking at those tyres, they look a little bit worn. Not too bad. It's just a couple of things on them, but
It's just
they look a little
extra
bit. They look fresh enough, essentially. Yeah. So Isaac's just saying, are Mercedes faster than Red Bull this weekend? I think that's just when Red Bull haven't done a medium tire run yet.
They haven't even done a soft tire run yet.
Well, it's so. I mean, Red Bull will go quite a lot quicker. I imagine they'll come out right in these last 5 minutes to go and do a couple of quality times. Maybe they don't. Maybe they leave it all
They're
up.
still out on track on a set of hards at the moment. So
Maybe they're worried more about the race than they are for qualifying. I think that actually might be the case. I don't think too many teams are too concerned about what their qualifying times will be because they know weather systems are playing a part later and they don't want to risk not setting up the car for the race and setting up the car for a qualifying where it's just going to be hazarded by rain. So that's probably what you're going to see, I think.
But it could provide us with a relatively interesting starting grid for Sunday, which I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to be an interesting qualifying session ahead of us later. Do be sure to join us for that. Watching a replay of Nico Hulkenberg going through turn 4.
Where he had that loss of power.
Yes.
Yeah, there, he just had a snap.
Big snap there, possibly a snap in the drive shaft.
Yeah, and then look at his wheel there, just loses all that power there on his car. He's just clearly lost a bit of problems there. So, bit of a problem. He's just had a bit of snap.
Able
And then,
to come back into the pits, though. You do see he's smooth over there.
And then the car just loses power. Oh, you could just see a bit of smoke just drives out the back of his car.
Coming out of the exhaust.
Yeah, that's a bit of concern for Haas as we're entering the last 5 minutes here. ASO Winning Formula is asking Reece for your top 3 prediction.
Top 3 prediction for the race weekend. I'm going to say Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Oscar Piastri. Something different.
That's big call there. Well, you haven't asked for my prediction, so I'm going to shed a tear and just move on and say, you know what, I'll give my prediction if someone asks it.
Well, I'll ask for your prediction there, Mark. What is your prediction?
No. You can't give me sympathy points yet, but nonetheless, I will because I really wanted to give my prediction. I will say, I'm going to predict Hamilton will win this weekend. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I think he might well be able to do it. His first race in a while.
That's currently going around that I showed you. So
yeah. So Hamilton first, I think Max Verstappen second, and I'm going to say Norris third. I'm going to say Norris is going to go in third. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc are going around a set of softs. Leclerc's clearly messed up the first sector there, so he's going to give up on that on a set of softs. Very disappointing for him, but Carlos Sainz is still going around. He puts himself now quickest, a 1:11.7.
very good lap time from himself there.
But still only 0.1 seconds quicker than Russell's medium tyre run.
Yes, Gary says there, wise comment, Mark. Red Bull are master strategists and setting up the car for the race is more than likely their plan. Old Man Rue there says, what is your prediction?
Well, I've given it now. There you go. You see people saying, we need Mark's predictions. Damn right we do. Not a Kroon, I haven't seen you in the comments yet, so welcome to the stream. Thank you so much. If you guys were confused and joining only late on as to where we were, this is our other channel. This is our main company channel. This is Forever Sports. This is the holding company. This is our main channel. So we'll be doing quite a few of our streams on this channel as well as our main Motorsports channel, which of course is Forever Motorsports. So be sure to subscribe to both channels. Be sure to like both videos. We're going to be doing the review on the other channel. So don't go anywhere right at the end of this session. We're going to go and review it. And if you guys have missed most of it, you can catch up there in that session with us. Be sure to ask us some questions in that part there. As Ferrari, just seeing a stat here, Sainz and Leclerc are tied on 16 podium finishes since they became teammates in 2021.
Very, very interesting. They'll be wanting to eke out at each other this weekend once again. But will they be able to do it? I don't know if the Ferraris have the pace to do it at the moment, looking at Sainz's time compared to Russell's.
Exactly that. So we've got a new fan here in the comments just saying, Hina Shahid rather saying, I'm new, so how do I read the timing boards? Well, I suppose it's a good point just to go and have a little bit of an explanation. So this is how it works. You can see the tires that they're running. That's one of the columns there. It literally says tires and goes down. Then you've got sector 1, sector 2, and sector 3 times. So, of course, the track is split into 3 different sectors. And then, of course, the main time there, that explains what times they did. Of course, they're ordered from 1st to 20th. And at the top right of that point, you can see how much time is left. As well as the bottom right, you can see the big in bold there is how much time is left. And in the top left, it tells you what session we're in. We are in practice, of course, the only practice for the session. As Charles Leclerc is finishing up a lap here, Reece.
Yes, Charles Leclerc puts himself into second with a 1:11.8 there in second place. 18.7 in the first sector, 36.6 in the second sector. And sector 3 is 16.4 for a lap time of 1:11.8. So just looking as well, explaining the time boards a little bit more. Also at the bottom underneath the 20th position where Piastri and Norris currently are sitting, it also shows yellow, red and blue. That is first, second and third sectors, and it shows you where the drivers are in those sectors.
Yeah, so it tells you where they are and about the track. So you can pretty much predict when they're about to finish a lap and go and find their name and see where they end up as a result of their attempt. So quite cool there. You don't even necessarily need our commentary. Of course, it does help in understanding exactly what goes on in those laps and why they might have gone slow or fast in certain sectors. But at least you can follow more or less where they are on the track, what times they're pushing in, and whether or not they're going quicker than some of the others. Watching a replay here of an Alfa Romeo Valtteri Bottas go into turn 1. Let's see what happens here. I think he might lock up quite badly. He's just got a lot of just understeer there. Just couldn't get the car around. Very interesting there, and just unfortunately misses the turn completely and goes off into the
possibly just getting a little bit too late on the brakes through there. You do see quite a lot of wear on those tires though, so it could also be the fact that those tires are just too old now. I don't think we're getting any medium or soft runs from the Red Bulls today.
No, as I say, and as somebody said in the comments, just agree with me, saying it's an interesting comment. They're saying wise comments. I think Red Bull are rather going to be going for the race setup than for qualifying. And I think it's exactly that. I think a lot of cars, to be fair, are doing that sort of thing, because even those cars that have come out, we're going to have a little bit of a race
racing, yes, between Hamilton and I think this is Yuki Tsunoda.
No, this is Ricciardo, isn't it? A red helmet is Ricciardo, I thought. No, it's Yuki Tsunoda. It's Yuki Tsunoda. It is Yuki Tsunoda, and that's Hamilton going to get very upset with, and I'm sure he's going to say, "What is this guy doing?" On the chat, just right at the end of the session. Now the session is officially over. We have elapsed the time, so it is now finished the session. So that's the end of P1. So looking at our timing boards, well, though Leclerc is setting a personal best at Sector 1, so it might change right at the end. So we're just going to keep watching here and see whether or not these times do change. But it looks like Ferraris have finished out there in first and second on a set of softs. I'm not sure they were quali runs. I think they were just race simulations on softs.
I think there may have been race simulations on softs, as you suggest as well, Mark. So hopefully that bodes well for the rest of this race weekend. I'm hoping that they're going to be able to compete. But at the moment, our top 5 is looking as such. I don't think Leclerc is improving.
I don't think Leclerc.
So Carlos Sainz up in P1 right now, with Charles Leclerc in P2, George Russell P3, Nico Hülkenberg P4, Alex Albon P5.
Yeah, very, very good there from them. So do not go anywhere. We're going to head on into our review session, which is going to be on our other channel. You'll be pulled across into that. But if you aren't and you want to be joining us, please be sure to go and subscribe to the Forever Motorsports channel. Just go and search for it. You'll see our review there. Join us for that. Ask us some questions about the session. Let us know your thoughts about the session. Of course, the only practice session is now, of course, checkered flagged. Everybody has finished it up. So let's see what happens there. And you can ask us some more questions with regards to our predictions in that session. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching on this channel. We'll see you in the next one.